One for all was never the only path to being number one. But what happens when a quirkless boy replaces All Might's legacy with 10,000 daily prayers? We're rewriting history where gratitude surpasses quirks. Step into the world. Today, Izuku Midoriya awakens the 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva.
Welcome, legends, to Chronos Recom. I wrote this story myself, so if you have any suggestions or what-ifs you want to see, drop it in the comments below. Also, just wanted to let you know I've got a Patreon set up now for anyone who wants to support the channel directly. You can get early access to stories, submit direct fan requests, and get exclusive content. It's totally optional, but if you want to help keep these stories coming, check it out. Links in the description. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit that bell so you never miss an upload. Let's dive into this story.
The world remembered Isaac Netero as the strongest Nen user humanity had ever produced. A man who had reached the pinnacle of martial arts mastery, who had surpassed human limitation through 10,000 prayers of gratitude, who had faced the ultimate evil and detonated his own heart to protect the world. When his soul departed that broken body in the aftermath of his final battle, it didn't fade into nothingness. It simply moved on, carried by forces beyond mortal comprehension, to begin again. Izuku Midoriya entered the world screaming like any other infant. But even then, something was different. His mother, Inko, noticed it in the way his eyes tracked movement with unusual focus, the way he seemed almost bored by the colorful mobiles and toys that captivated other babies. As he grew, that difference became more pronounced. At age 4, when other children received their quirks, the superpowers that had become humanity's new normal, Izuku received nothing. The doctor's diagnosis was clear: an extra joint in his pinky toe, a genetic marker indicating he would never develop a quirk. He was quirkless, obsolete, a relic of the previous generation in a world that had moved beyond baseline humanity. Inko cried when she heard the news. She apologized profusely to her son, holding him close as tears streamed down her face. She expected him to break down, to rage against the unfairness of it all. Instead, Izuku patted her head with small hands and said something that would haunt her for years to come. "It's fine, Mom. This just means I get to do things the fun way." He didn't cry. He didn't despair. He simply accepted it with a strange serenity that seemed entirely out of place in a 4-year-old child. The other children mocked him, of course. Bakugo Katsuki, his childhood friend, was the worst of them. The explosive blonde had developed a powerful quirk that let him create explosions from his palms, and he used Izuku as a punching bag to demonstrate his superiority. But even then, even as a small child taking beatings he couldn't hope to win, Izuku never broke. He would stand up, dust himself off, and smile in a way that unnerved everyone around him. "That all you got?" he'd ask, blood trickling from his nose. Boring. By age 10, something had crystallized in Izuku's mind. He sat in his room, surrounded by All Might merchandise that no longer interested him, watching videos of the #1 hero saving people with that ever-present smile. The media called All Might the symbol of peace, the pillar that held society together, the greatest hero who ever lived. Izuku watched him punch a villain through 3 buildings and felt nothing. "Too stiff," he muttered, rewinding the footage. "Too predictable. He telegraphs every move. Look at that wind-up. Any competent fighter would see it coming from a mile away." He analyzed the footage with clinical precision. All Might was strong, certainly. Overwhelmingly so. But he fought like someone who had never truly been challenged, who relied purely on raw power to overwhelm opponents. There was no technique, no refinement, no artistry to it. Just brute force applied until the problem stopped moving. The other heroes were even worse. Endeavor fought with anger, letting his emotions cloud his judgment. Best Jeanist focused on flashy displays rather than efficiency. Hawks was closer to interesting, but even he seemed more concerned with speed than actual combat mastery. They weren't warriors. They were civil servants with superpowers, doing a job because society expected it of them. The thrill of combat, the electric joy of facing an opponent who could genuinely threaten you, the transcendent moment when 2 fighters pushed each other beyond their limits, none of them understood that. None of them lived for it. That night, Izuku made his decision. He left a note for his mother. "Gone to train. Don't worry. I'll be back when I'm strong enough to have fun." Then he vanished into the mountains. The mountain range outside Musutafu was largely uninhabited. Too remote for cities, too rugged for farmland. It served mainly as a nature preserve that most people forgot existed. Perfect for someone who wanted to disappear from the world for a while, Izuku found a cave on the third day of wandering. It was deep enough to provide shelter from the elements, but shallow enough that he could see the entrance from anywhere inside. A small stream ran nearby, providing fresh water. Wild berries and edible plants grew in abundance. It would do. He set up a small camp using materials scrounged from the forest, a bedroll made of leaves and moss, a fire pit ringed with stones, tools fashioned from sharpened rocks and sturdy branches. Nothing fancy, nothing unnecessary, just the bare minimum required for survival. Then he began. The memory came to him like a half-remembered dream. An old man standing on a mountaintop, hands pressed together in prayer, punching the air 10,000 times while the sun traced its arc across the sky. Again and again, day after day after year, until his fists moved faster than sound and his body transcended human limitation. Isaac Netero. That was the name. The memory grew clearer each time Izuku focused on it, like pulling a thread to unravel a tapestry. Not his memory, someone else's. Someone who had lived an entire lifetime before this one, who had reached heights of martial prowess that defied comprehension, someone who had died satisfied, having finally found an opponent worthy of his full power. Izuku pressed his palms together in prayer position. The motion felt more natural than breathing, like his body remembered, even if his conscious mind didn't. He stood there for a moment, feeling the weight of it, the significance of what he was about to undertake. Then he threw his first punch. It was sloppy. Weak. His form was terrible, his balance off, his technique non-existent. He was a 10-year-old child with no training, trying to replicate a move from memories that weren't entirely his own. He threw another punch. Then another. Then another. He would throw 10,000 punches today, and tomorrow and the day after that, not because he wanted to be a hero, not because he wanted to save people or protect the innocent or become a symbol of peace. He wanted to become a monster. He wanted to transcend human limitation. He wanted to reach a level where fighting him would make opponents question whether they were facing a human being or some kind of demonic entity. And most of all, he wanted to find someone strong enough to make his blood sing. The first year was hell. Izuku's hands bled constantly. His knuckles split open and scabbed over and split open again. His arms felt like they would fall off. His legs trembled from holding the prayer stance for hours at a time. Every muscle in his body screamed in agony. He pushed through it, 10,000 punches every day without fail. When his hands became too damaged to continue, he punched with his elbows. When his arms gave out entirely, he kicked. When he collapsed from exhaustion, he would sleep for a few hours and then resume where he left off. The mountain didn't care about his pain. The trees didn't applaud his effort. Nature was utterly indifferent to his suffering, and that indifference was exactly what he needed. No encouragement, no sympathy, no one telling him he was working too hard or that he should take it easy. Just him, his body, and the endless repetition of the prayer punch. Something began to change around the 6-month mark. His movements became sharper, more precise. The punches that had once been wild and uncontrolled started following proper form without conscious thought. His body was learning, adapting, evolving. And then one morning he felt it, a warmth in his chest, a golden glow that pulsed in time with his heartbeat. It wasn't a quirk, those were genetic abilities, coded into DNA, measurable by medical science. This was something else entirely, something that came from within, cultivated through training and willpower, rather than inherited through biology. The memories called it Nen. Life energy given form through meditation and training. In this world, where quirks had become the dominant form of superhuman ability, this older, pure power had been forgotten, but it still existed, waiting for someone dedicated enough to rediscover it. Izuku grinned as the golden aura flickered around his hands. This was just the beginning. By the end of the first year, he could punch fast enough to create small sonic booms. By the end of the second, he could move faster than the human eye could track. By the end of the third, he had developed the ability to manifest his aura into tangible form, a massive golden avatar that towered behind him, its multiple arms ready to strike at his command. The 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva. Netero's ultimate technique, reborn in a new world, but technique alone wasn't enough. Izuku trained his body relentlessly, pushing himself beyond human limits. He ran through the mountains until his legs gave out, then crawled until even that became impossible. He lifted boulders, climbed sheer cliff faces, swam against raging rapids. He hunted wild animals with his bare hands, learning to read their movements, to predict their attacks, to exploit their weaknesses. He studied combat theory obsessively, replaying memories from his previous life, analyzing fighting styles from every angle. He learned to maximize efficiency, to minimize wasted movement, to end fights with the least possible effort while still enjoying the experience. And through it all, that manic grin never left his face. This was fun. This was what he had been looking for. Not the training itself. That was just a means to an end. But the promise of what would come after. The battles waiting for him when he finally descended from this mountain. The opponents who would push him to his limits. The glorious, blood-pumping thrill of combat against someone who genuinely threatened his life. He couldn't wait. Izuku descended from the mountains on his 15th birthday, 5 years to the day after he had vanished from civilization. The boy who had left was scrawny and weak, barely able to throw a proper punch. The young man who returned was something else entirely. His body was lean and compact, every muscle honed to perfection through years of brutal training. He moved with a fluid grace that made it seem like he was dancing rather than walking. His eyes held a gleam that was equal parts mischief and madness. He wore a white sleeveless shirt and black shorts, comfortable, practical, allowing for maximum mobility. No flashy costume, no hero merchandise, nothing that would identify him as anything other than a random teenager out for a jog. He walked into Musutafu like he owned the place. The city had changed in 5 years, but not as much as he had. New buildings had gone up. The hero rankings had shuffled slightly. All Might was still number 1, still saving people with that ridiculous smile, still completely uninteresting to watch. Izuku stopped at a convenience store and bought 3 things: a sports drink, a protein bar, and an adult magazine featuring women in swimsuits. The cashier, a college-age girl with a quirk that made her hair change colors, stared at him. "Aren't you a little young for that?" Izuku grinned. "I'm 15. That's the legal age for purchasing these in Japan. Want to check my ID?" She flushed and rang up his purchases without further comment. He cracked open the magazine while walking down the street, reading it with complete shamelessness. People stared. He ignored them. A few heroes on patrol gave him disapproving looks. He waved cheerfully. This was going to be fun. Home was exactly as he remembered it. A small apartment in a working-class neighborhood, the walls decorated with fading All Might posters, the furniture worn but clean. His mother sat at the kitchen table, looking older than he remembered. There were lines around her eyes that hadn't been there 5 years ago. Her hair had a few gray streaks. She looked up when he walked in. For a moment, she didn't recognize him. Then her eyes widened. "Izuku?" "Hey, Mom." He dropped his bag by the door. "I'm back." She burst into tears and practically tackled him with a hug. He let her cry into his shoulder, patting her back awkwardly. Physical affection had never been his strong suit, either in this life or the previous one. "Where have you been? I was so worried. I filed missing person reports. I had heroes looking for you. I thought you were dead." "Training," he said simply. "I left you a note. You left me a note saying you were going to train for 5 years. Do you have any idea what I went through?" "Probably something similar to what you went through when the doctor told you I was quirkless and society basically wrote me off as worthless." He said it without malice, just stating facts. "I needed to get stronger, so I did." She pulled back, looking him up and down. "Stronger? Izuku, you were 10 years old. And now I'm 15 and I can punch through concrete." He demonstrated by casually flicking the wall. His finger left a small crater. "See? Training works." Inko stared at the damaged wall, then at her son, then back at the wall. That's not possible. You don't have a quirk." "Quirks aren't the only way to get strong, Mom." He walked to the fridge and pulled out ingredients for dinner. "I learned that the hard way. Now I'm starving and I'm going to make us some food. and then we can talk about boring stuff like school enrollment and legal documentation. School? She blinked. You want to go to school? UA specifically. He started chopping vegetables with practiced efficiency. I need to become a licensed hero so I can legally fight villains. Fighting civilians would be boring, they're too weak. But villains, some of them might actually be interesting. You want to become a hero to fight villains? Inko's voice rose an octave. Not to save people? I'll save people if they happen to be nearby when I'm fighting. Call it a bonus. He tossed the vegetables into a hot pan. But yeah, my main goal is to find strong opponents and beat the hell out of them. That's what gets my blood pumping. Inko sat down heavily, putting her head in her hands. My son came back from 5 years in the wilderness as some kind of battle maniac. Better than coming back as a corpse, Izuku pointed out cheerfully. Now, tell me what I missed. Is All Might still boring? Is Endeavor still an anger management case study? Did anyone interesting show up on the hero scene? She told him about the past 5 years while he cooked. Nothing particularly interesting had happened. The hero rankings had remained mostly stable. Villains were becoming slightly bolder, but nothing catastrophic had occurred. Society continued functioning more or less as it had before he left. Boring. Still, UA was his ticket to legitimate combat. The entrance exam was in a few months. He'd need to register, take some placement tests to prove he hadn't completely neglected his academic education. He hadn't. He'd studied advanced physics, biology, and mathematics in his spare time between training sessions, and then crushed the practical exam. Easy. Bakugo Katsuki had become exactly the kind of arrogant powerhouse Izuku had predicted he would. In the 5 years since Izuku's disappearance, Bakugo had dominated every aspect of middle school life. Best grades, strongest quirk, most athletic, most popular with the girls who liked the bad boy type. He was a god among insects, and he knew it. So when Izuku walked into Aldera Middle School to collect transcripts and take placement exams, Bakugo's reaction was about what you'd expect. Well, look who crawled back from whatever hole he was hiding in. Bakugo swaggered over, hands crackling with small explosions. His lackeys flanked him, grinning like hyenas. The quirkless wonder himself. Where have you been, Deku? Did you finally accept that you're worthless and run away to cry about it? Izuku looked up from the magazine he was reading, a particularly interesting article about swimsuit photography techniques, and smiled. Bakugo. Still compensating for your insecurities by bullying people weaker than you? That's adorable. Bakugo's eye twitched. What did you just say? I said it's adorable, like a chihuahua barking at a mailman. Izuku turned a page. All noise, no substance. Bakugo grabbed him by the collar and lifted him up, explosions popping in his free hand. I'm going to kill you, you worthless piece of... Izuku vanished. Not teleportation, just speed. He simply moved faster than Bakugo's eyes could track, slipping out of his grip and reappearing 10 feet away, still reading his magazine. Too slow, Izuku said without looking up. Also, you're telegraphing your attacks. I could see that explosion coming from 3 seconds away. Bakugo spun around, face red with fury. How did you? 5 years of training. Izuku finally closed his magazine and looked at Bakugo with genuine interest. Hey, you've gotten stronger. Your explosions are bigger than they used to be. Want to fight? I could use some light exercise. Light exercise? Bakugo's hands erupted with explosions large enough to char the floor. I'll show you light exercise. He launched himself forward with explosion-powered speed, closing the distance in an instant. His right hand swung in a devastating haymaker aimed at Izuku's face, explosions coating his knuckles. Izuku leaned back slightly. The punch passed an inch from his nose. He could feel the heat of the explosion, smell the burnt nitroglycerin, hear the crackling of superheat air. Boring. He leaned left. Another punch missed. Leaned right. A third punch whistled past his ear. Stepped back, forward kick missed. Ducked. Overhead smash cratered the floor where he'd been standing. Through it all, his expression remained utterly serene, almost bored. Bakugo was panting now, sweat dripping down his face. Stop dodging and fight me! Why? Izuku tilted his head. This is more fun. Watching you flail around like an angry toddler is hilarious. Bakugo unleashed his biggest explosion yet, a massive blast that consumed the entire hallway in fire and smoke. When the smoke cleared, Izuku stood in the exact same spot, completely unharmed, not even his clothes singed. He'd moved through the explosion at the precise angles needed to avoid the heat, riding the shockwave like a surfer riding a wave. You know what your problem is, Bakugo? Izuku brushed some dust off his shoulder. You rely too much on your quirk. You never learn to actually fight. Take away your explosions and you're just some angry kid throwing wild punches. I don't need fighting technique, Bakugo snarled. My quirk is... Izuku appeared directly in front of him. One moment he was 10 feet away, the next he was nose to nose with Bakugo, moving faster than the explosive teen could process. Your quirk is a crutch, Izuku said softly. And one day you're going to face someone who can nullify it, or someone fast enough that you can't land a hit, or someone tough enough that your explosions don't matter. What are you going to do then? Bakugo swung wildly. Izuku caught his wrist between two fingers, stopping the punch effortlessly. Get stronger, Bakugo. Actually learn to fight. Then maybe you'll be interesting enough for me to take seriously. He released Bakugo's wrist and patted him on the head like a child. Until then, you're just another loud extra. He walked away, leaving Bakugo trembling with rage in the destroyed hallway. The UA entrance exam was in 3 months. Izuku spent that time doing two things, catching up on academic knowledge and scouting potential opponents. The academic side was easy. He'd always been naturally intelligent, and 5 years of studying advanced subjects in his spare time meant he was actually ahead of most high school students in mathematics and science. He breezed through practice exams, scoring in the 95th percentile or higher on everything. The opponent's scouting was more interesting. He watched videos of up-and-coming young heroes looking for anyone with potential. Most were disappointments. Flashy quirks used inefficiently, poor combat fundamentals, reliance on their powers rather than actual skill. The next generation of heroes would be just as boring as the current one, but a few caught his attention. Todoroki Shoto, the son of Endeavor, the number 2 hero. The kid had a combination quirk, ice on his right side, fire on his left. Powerful, versatile, with good instincts. There were rumors he refused to use his fire side due to some kind of family drama, which was stupid, but the potential was there. Ida Tenya. From a family of speed-based heroes with engine quirks in his legs. Fast, disciplined with actual martial arts training, not particularly creative, but solid fundamentals meant he could become genuinely dangerous with the right development. Bakugo Katsuki. Unfortunately, the explosive blonde was still an arrogant ass, but his raw combat instincts were excellent. If he ever learned to actually think strategically instead of just blowing up everything in sight, he could become a real threat. And then there was someone who didn't show up in any of the videos, but whose presence he could feel even through secondhand accounts. All Might's successor. The symbol of peace was weakening. Izuku could see it in recent footage. The man's smile was the same, his catchphrases were the same, but his response times had slowed fractionally. His fights were ending slightly quicker. He was spending less time in his muscular form. All Might was dying, and he was looking for a successor. The rumor mill said he'd chosen someone, a student who would inherit his power, his legacy, his position as the symbol of peace. Izuku didn't know who it was yet, but he was intensely curious. Would they be strong? Would they be interesting? Would they give him a good fight? He couldn't wait to find out. The morning of the UA entrance exam, Izuku woke up at dawn and went through his routine. 10,000 prayer punches, which now took him less than an hour thanks to his speed. A quick breakfast of rice, fish, and vegetables. Some light stretching to keep his muscles loose. Then he dressed in his signature outfit, white sleeveless shirt, black shorts, comfortable sneakers. He grabbed a basketball from his closet, a random impulse purchase that he decided would be funny to bring, and headed out. His mother stopped him at the door. Izuku, are you sure about this? UA is the most prestigious hero school in Japan. If you don't get in, I'll get in, he said simply. I'm the strongest person taking this exam. It won't even be close. That's not, I mean the written portion. Mom, he turned to face her. I've spent 5 years preparing for this. I can punch through steel, move faster than sound, and manifest a giant golden avatar that can level buildings. The entrance exam is designed to test quirks and combat ability. I'm going to dominate. She bit her lip. Just be careful, okay? And try not to show off too much. I make no promises. He kissed her on the forehead and left, UA's campus was massive. The main building alone was larger than most public schools, with training facilities that could accommodate hundreds of students simultaneously. The entrance exam would take place in one of these facilities, a massive urban mock-up filled with robot enemies for applicants to destroy. Izuku arrived early and found a spot to wait with the other applicants. There were hundreds of them, all teenagers around his age, all looking nervous or excited or determined. Most wore athletic clothes suitable for combat. A few had already activated their quirks, showing off to impress others or psych out the competition. He pulled out his magazine and started reading. The girl next to him, short brown hair, round face, wearing a pink tracksuit, stared at him. Are you really reading that right now? Yep. He didn't look up. Good article about camera angles, very educational. But the exam is about to start. Aren't you nervous? Not really. He turned a page. I'm more curious whether any of the robots will be strong enough to make this interesting. She blinked. Make it interesting? They're robots designed to test our quirks. They're supposed to be challenging. For you, maybe. He finally looked at her. Cute face, earnest eyes, the kind of person who probably wanted to be a hero for all the right reasons. Boring, but not in a bad way. What's your quirk? I can make things weightless by touching them. She demonstrated by tapping a nearby pebble, which immediately floated into the air. It's called zero gravity. I'm hoping I can use it to rescue people or immobilize villains or... Cool. He went back to his magazine. I'm going to use mine to beat the hell out of giant robots. Oh, what's your quirk? Officially, I'm registered as quirkless. She gasped. But then, how are you going to... You'll see. He smiled in a way that made her take an involuntary step back. It's more fun if it's a surprise. Before she could respond, the doors to the exam facility opened and a tall, thin man with ridiculous blonde hair styled to defy physics stepped out. Present Mike, the voice hero, one of UA's teachers. Double welcome, future heroes. His voice was amplified to ear-splitting levels. Are you ready to show us what you've got? The crowd cheered. Izuku yawned. Present Mick launched into an explanation of the exam rules. There would be 3 types of robot enemies, worth 1, 2, and 3 points respectively. Applicants would have 10 minutes to destroy as many as possible. There was also a 0-point robot, a massive obstacle that gave no points and should be avoided. Standard stuff. Izuku had already figured out the real test. The 0-pointer was clearly meant to see who would sacrifice points to save others. Typical hero school nonsense, testing whether people had heroic spirit or whatever. He was going to kill the 0-pointer anyway because it sounded fun. Any questions? Present Mike shouted. A tall boy with glasses and engine exhausts in his calves shot his hand up. Excuse me, you mentioned 3 types of enemies, but the handout shows 4. This is clearly an error in the exam materials. If UA cannot provide accurate information, how can we trust? Great question, examinee 71111. Present Mike pointed at him. That 4th robot is worth 0 points. It's just an obstacle. Avoid it and focus on the others. The glasses boy sat down, looking satisfied. Izuku recognized him from his research. Ida Tenya, the speed hero's brother. Uptight, rule-following, probably never had fun in his entire life. Potentially interesting as an opponent, but definitely annoying as a person. If there are no other questions, head to your assigned areas. The exam starts in 10 minutes. The crowd dispersed, heading to different sections of the massive training facility. Izuku bounced his basketball a few times, getting a feel for its weight and texture. The brown-haired girl from earlier had been assigned to the same area as him. She waved nervously when she saw him. He waved back with his free hand, then went back to dribbling the ball. Battle Center B was a perfect replica of a small city district. Buildings, streets, traffic lights, even fake civilians that would get in the way. And scattered throughout were the robots, mechanical enemies designed to be destroyed by applicants' quirks. Izuku stood at the starting line with about 50 other examinees. They were all tensed, ready to sprint forward the moment the signal was given. Strategies were already forming in their heads. Which robots to target first, which areas to focus on, how to maximize points in the limited time available. He just kept dribbling his basketball. The countdown timer appeared on a massive screen. 10, 9, 8. Someone next to him whispered, "What's with that guy in the basketball? Maybe it's part of his quirk? He looks way too relaxed." 3, 2, 1, start. The crowd surged forward. Quirks activated immediately. Fire, ice, strength enhancements, speed boosts. The examinees scattered in every direction, hunting for robots to destroy. Izuku walked forward at a leisurely pace, still dribbling his ball. A 1-point robot, a small mechanical unit with extendable arms, rolled toward him. Its targeting systems locked on, identifying him as a valid target. Its arms extended, preparing to grab him. Izuku stopped dribbling. He looked at the robot with mild interest. Then he pressed his palms together in prayer position. The change was instantaneous. His relaxed, almost lazy demeanor vanished, replaced by absolute focus. His eyes sharpened, his breathing slowed. The golden aura around his heart pulsed once, twice, building power. "First hand," he whispered. He didn't move. To the observers, it looked like he just stood there while the robot attacked. Then the air exploded. A massive golden hand materialized behind Izuku, enormous, easily 20 feet tall, radiating power and light. It slapped forward with incredible speed, moving faster than the human eye could track. The robot ceased to exist. Not destroyed, atomized, turned into a cloud of metal particles that scattered across the street. The slap continued through the concrete, creating a crater 10 feet deep and 30 feet wide. The shockwave knocked nearby examinees off their feet. Izuku lowered his hands, picked up his basketball, and resumed dribbling. 1 point. Boring. He walked deeper into the facility. The exam descended into chaos. Everywhere Izuku went, robots died. 2-point robots, 3-point robots, even the ones other examinees were fighting. He'd casually slap them into scrap metal as he passed by, often without breaking his dribbling rhythm. Third hand. Slap. 3 robots became debris. Fifth hand. Slap. A robot hit the pavement so hard it left an impact crater. 11th hand. Slap, slap. Multiple robots in different directions, all struck simultaneously by different golden hands manifesting from thin air. The other examinees stopped fighting and just stared. This guy who'd been reading a dirty magazine before the exam, was annihilating robots with a wave of his hand. The golden avatar that occasionally manifested behind him was larger than most buildings, its multiple arms moving independently to strike targets from impossible angles. "What the hell is his quirk?" someone whispered. "Is that even a quirk? I've never seen anything like it. He's not even trying. He's dribbling a basketball." Izuku heard the comments and grinned. This was exactly the reaction he wanted. Confusion, awe, a little bit of fear. Perfect. A 3-point robot, significantly larger and more armored than the others, burst through a building, targeting him with multiple weapons. Missiles, lasers, machine guns. It unleashed everything simultaneously, Izuku sighed. Finally, something that looks mildly interesting. He threw his basketball into the air, pressed his hands together. 23rd hand. The golden avatar manifested fully this time. A massive bodhisattva with 100 arms, each one capable of striking with enough force to level a building. Its face was serene, almost compassionate, a stark contrast to the overwhelming violence it was about to unleash. 23 of those arms moved in perfect synchronization. The robot exploded. Not from a single devastating strike, but from being hit simultaneously from 23 different angles, each impact shattering a different component. The missiles were slapped out of the air. The lasers were dispersed by the sheer pressure of the attacks. The machine guns were crushed into scrap. In less than a second, the most powerful robot in the exam had been reduced to a pile of twisted metal. Izuku caught his basketball as it fell. 3 points. Still boring. That's when the ground started shaking. The 0-pointer emerged from the far end of the battle center, and it was glorious. Easily 100 feet tall, a massive bipedal robot designed to look intimidating and unstoppable. Its arms ended in massive drills. Its eyes glowed red. Each step it took shook the ground like a minor earthquake. The examinees screamed and ran. This was the obstacle they'd been warned about, worth 0 points, impossibly powerful, meant to be avoided at all costs. Izuku's eyes lit up like a child seeing presents on Christmas morning. "Oh yes," he breathed. "Now we're talking." The 0-pointer's targeting systems locked onto the fleeing examinees. Its protocols were simple: appear threatening, chase students, create scenarios where they had to choose between points and safety. It wasn't actually supposed to hurt anyone. There were fail-safes and shutdown protocols in place, but it made for an excellent toy. Izuku didn't run. He walked toward it, dribbling his basketball, grinning from ear to ear. The robot's sensors detected him. Its classification system tried to process what it was seeing. One examinee, walking directly toward it, showing no fear. Error. Does not compute, adjusting threat assessment, recalculating. It raised one massive foot to crush this strange, fearless human. First hand. Slap. The foot stopped mid-stomp, driven back by an invisible force. The robot stumbled, balance system scrambling to compensate for the unexpected impact. Izuku laughed. You can take a hit. Good. Let's see how many you can handle. Third hand. Slap. The robot's left arm dented. Seventh hand. Slap. Its right leg buckled. 13th hand. Slap. The torso armor cracked. He was playing with it. Each strike was precisely calibrated to damage but not destroy, to test its durability, to see how much punishment it could absorb. This wasn't a fight. It was an experiment. A game. The robot tried to retaliate, swinging its drill arms at him with enough force to demolish a building. Izuku dodged casually, his movements almost lazy. The drills passed inches from his body, creating shockwaves that shattered nearby windows. He hopped on one foot, still dribbling his basketball, treating this like a playground game. Too slow, he laughed. Come on, big guy, show me what you've got. That's when he noticed her. A girl, the brown-haired one from earlier, had been knocked down by the zero-pointer's initial appearance. She was trapped under a piece of rubble, her leg pinned, unable to escape, and the robot's foot was descending toward her. Most people would have panicked, rushed in immediately, screamed a warning. Izuku calculated the trajectory, the timing, the force required. He had approximately 1.3 seconds before the foot crushed her. Plenty of time. He finished dribbling his basketball, tucked it under his arm, and jumped. Not a normal jump. He launched himself into the air with enough force to crack the pavement beneath his feet, rocketing upward like a missile. The wind resistance should have torn his clothes apart. The acceleration should have liquefied his internal organs. Instead, he soared upward, golden aura blazing around him, grinning like a maniac. At the apex of his jump, level with the zero-pointer's head, he pressed his palms together. The golden avatar manifested in full. All 100 arms materialized at once, creating a sight that would be burned into every observer's memory for the rest of their lives. A massive bodhisattva, serene and terrible, radiating power that made the air itself vibrate. 99th hand. 99 arms struck simultaneously. The sound was indescribable, like 1,000 thunderclaps compressed into a single moment. The shockwave shattered every window in Battle Center B. The force of the impact created a crater 50 feet deep. The zero-pointer's head separated from its body, flew through the air in a perfect arc, and landed half a mile away with an impact that registered on seismographs across the city. Izuku landed gracefully next to the brown-haired girl. The massive robot's body collapsed backward, falling in slow motion, its systems completely destroyed. He looked down at her with a cheerful smile. "You okay, miss?" She stared at him, eyes wide with shock, mouth hanging open. You just killed the big robot?" "Yeah." He pulled the rubble off her leg with one hand. It weighed several tons, but might as well have been styrofoam to him. "Can you walk?" She tried to stand and winced. "My ankle, I think it's sprained. Here." He scooped her up in a princess carry before she could protest. "I'll take you to the medical area." "Wait, I need to get more points. The exam is over." He nodded toward the timer on the screen. "Time's up, and you probably got enough points from the robots you destroyed earlier. Plus," he grinned, "I'm pretty sure UA gives rescue points for helping other examinees. You would have gotten some if you'd been able to move. This way I get them instead." That's not fair. You already destroyed like 100 robots. 147, actually. I was counting." He started walking toward the exit. "But yeah, the rescue points are just a bonus. I mainly saved you because it would have been annoying to watch you get crushed. Blood is hard to clean up, you know?" She didn't know how to respond to that, so she just held on silently as he carried her through the destroyed battle center. Present Mike stood in the observation room with several other UA teachers, staring at the screens in stunned silence. Principal Nedzu, a strange chimera creature with intelligence far beyond human norms, was reviewing the footage for the third time, his paws clasped thoughtfully. "Remarkable," Nedzu said quietly. "Absolutely remarkable. That power, Aizawa Shoda muttered, his tired eyes fixed on the replay. It's not a quirk. I would have been able to erase it if it were. His registration lists him as quirkless, Midnight added, looking through Izuku's file. Disappeared for 5 years. No medical records, no school attendance, no social media presence, just vanished. Then shows up for the entrance exam and does that. The screens showed the final moment again. The massive golden avatar. The 99 simultaneous strikes. The zero-pointer's head being launched into the stratosphere. He held back, All Might said quietly. He was in his deflated form, a skeletal, gaunt version of his muscular hero persona. That last attack, he could have used more power. He chose not to. How can you tell? Present Mike asked. Because the zero-pointer still has a body. All Might pointed at the fallen robot. If he'd wanted to completely destroy it, he could have. He aimed for the head specifically, precision, not raw power. So he's strong and has excellent control. Nedzu's grin widened. Oh, I like this one. Very interesting. Very unpredictable. He's also reading pornographic magazines in public and carried that girl out like she was a prize he won, Midnight noted. His psychological profile is going to be concerning. Concerning, but not disqualifying. Nedzu pulled up Izuku's written exam scores. His academic scores are exceptional. Top percentile in every subject. His combat performance speaks for itself. And technically, he did save another examinee from danger, which shows at least some heroic instinct. Or he just didn't want to see someone die in front of him, Aizawa countered. There's a difference between being a hero and simply not wanting to watch people suffer. Does the motivation matter if the result is the same? Nedzu tilted his head. He saved her. That's what counts. Principal, Recovery Girl spoke up for the first time. The elderly healing hero had been watching silently until now. That power of his, it's similar to something I've only read about in very old texts. Before quirks became widespread, there were stories of people who could cultivate their life energy into tangible power. Martial artists who transcended normal human limitation through training alone. You're talking about legends, Aizawa said flatly. I'm talking about history. Recovery Girl pulled up an old book on her tablet. Before quirks, before the world changed, there were people who achieved superhuman feats through discipline and training. They called it different things in different cultures, chi-ki, prana. The concept was universal, life energy given form through willpower. And you think this boy has rediscovered that? Nedzu leaned forward with interest. I think this boy might be the first person in generations to prove it was never a legend in the first place. All Might stared at the screen, watching Izuku walk away carrying the girl he'd saved, that cocky grin on his face. Something about the boy reminded him of himself at that age. Confident, powerful, ready to take on the world. But there was something else there too. Something hungry. Something that didn't quite align with the typical heroic motivation. This boy didn't fight to protect others. He fought because he loved fighting. All Might had seen that look before. In villains. In people who became heroes for the wrong reasons. In opponents who cared more about the thrill of combat than about the lives at stake. We need to watch him carefully, All Might said quietly. That kind of power, combined with that kind of personality, it could go either way. Agreed, Nedzu said cheerfully, which is exactly why we're going to accept him into Class 1A. If he's going to become a hero or a villain, I'd much rather have him where we can influence that decision. Izuku got his acceptance letter 2 weeks later. He opened it while eating breakfast, his mother hovering anxiously nearby. A holographic projection of All Might burst from the letter, speaking in his trademark booming voice. Young Midoriya, I am here with your exam results. Izuku took a bite of toast and watched with mild interest. You scored 47 villain points, the highest in your battle center. But that's not all. Our panel of judges also awards rescue points for heroic actions during the exam. You received 15 rescue points for saving your fellow examinee from the zero-pointer. Only 15? Izuku muttered. I literally saved her life. With a total of 62 points, you have earned a place in UA's Hero course. Welcome, young Midoriya, to your Hero Academia. The hologram faded. Izuku finished his toast. You did it. Inko hugged him from behind. You got into UA. I'm so proud of you. Yep, he patted her arm, though I'm a little disappointed I didn't get more rescue points. I carried her all the way to medical. That's at least 20 points worth of effort. Izuku, you should be happy. This is a huge achievement. I am happy. He stood up and stretched. Now I get to legally fight strong opponents. The entrance exam robots were boring, but UA's training will put me against actual people with interesting powers. That's what I've been waiting for. She sighed. Please tell me you're going to at least try to be a normal hero student. Mom, I'm going to show up to class reading dirty magazines and dribbling a basketball. I gave up on normal 5 years ago. He grinned. But I'll try not to traumatize too many of my classmates. How's that? I'll take what I can get, she muttered. The first day of school at UA was appropriately dramatic. Izuku showed up in the required uniform, gray pants, white shirt, red tie, green jacket, but wore it in the most casual way possible. Untucked shirt, loose tie, jacket slung over his shoulder. He had a basketball in one hand and a magazine in the other. Class 1A's door was massive, easily 3 times the height of a normal door, designed to accommodate students with size-altering quirks, apparently. Izuku pushed it open and walked in. The classroom was already half full. Students were chatting, introducing themselves, showing off their quirks. The atmosphere was excited, nervous, full of teenage energy. Izuku walked to an empty desk near the window, sat down, and opened his magazine. Conversation stopped. People stared. Is that guy seriously reading porn on the first day of school? Someone whispered. Maybe it's some kind of weird confidence thing? Or he's just a pervert. Izuku ignored them and kept reading. The magazine was actually quite informative. This month's issue had a feature on different camera lenses and their effects on photography. Educational content, really. The door slammed open. Bakugo stormed in, looking around with his usual scowl. His eyes landed on Izuku. You. Me, Izuku agreed without looking up. What the hell are you doing here? Bakugo stomped over to his desk. This is UA, the top hero school. They don't accept quirkless losers. And yet, here I am. Izuku turned a page. Weird, right? You probably cheated somehow, bribed the judges, or I destroyed 147 robots and decapitated the zero-pointer. Izuku finally looked at him. Sit down, Bakugo. You're making a scene. I'll make whatever scene I want. You think just because you got into UA that you're suddenly... A yellow sleeping bag in the corner of the room rustled. Everyone jumped as it unzipped, revealing a disheveled man with long black hair and a tired expression. If you're here to make friends, leave now, the man said in a flat, exhausted voice. I'm Aizawa Shota, your homeroom teacher. Put on these gym uniforms and meet me outside in 5 minutes. We're doing a quirk assessment test. He tossed a stack of gym uniforms onto the nearest desk and crawled out of his sleeping bag, somehow making the action look even more exhausted than lying in it. The class scrambled to change. Izuku took his uniform and headed to the changing room with the other boys. The quirk assessment test took place on UA's massive training field. 8 different stations testing different physical abilities, 50-meter dash, grip strength, standing long jump, repeated side steps, ball throw, distance running, seated toe touch, and sit-ups. Aizawa stood before the class, looking even more exhausted in the daylight. In middle school, you weren't allowed to use your quirks during physical tests. It was irrational. Here at UA, we measure your potential properly. You'll perform these 8 tests using your quirks however you see fit. He pointed at Bakugo. You scored highest on the entrance exam. Demonstrate a ball throw. Bakugo grinned viciously. He took the softball, wound up, and hurled it with an explosion-powered throw. The ball rocketed into the distance. Disappearing into the sky, Aizawa held up a device showing the distance, 705.2 meters. The class erupted in impressed murmurs. Whoever scores lowest in overall points gets expelled, Aizawa said casually. Immediately. No second chances. The excited chatter died instantly. That's not fair, a pink-skinned girl protested. Natural disasters aren't fair. Villain attacks aren't fair. Hero work isn't fair. Aizawa's eyes glowed red. If you can't handle this, you should quit now. Izuku raised his hand. Question, sensei. What? If I win, do I get a prize? The class stared at him. Aizawa's eye twitched. This isn't a game, Midoriya. Everything's a game if you have the right attitude. Izuku stretched his leg over his head casually, demonstrating flexibility that made several students wince. But seriously, I'm going to dominate these tests. Seems only fair I get something out of it. Your prize is not getting expelled. Boring, but fine. Izuku stood up. Let's get this over with. The 50-meter dash went first. Students ran in pairs, their times recorded. Ida went first, using his engine quirk to blast down the track in 3.04 seconds. Impressive. Then it was Izuku's turn. He walked to the starting line, hands in his pockets, looking completely unbothered. Ready, set, go! Izuku vanished. He literally disappeared from the starting line, moving faster than the electronic sensors could detect. He appeared at the finish line instantly, having covered 50 meters in the time it took other people to blink. The scoreboard flickered, trying to calculate his time. Finally, it displayed 0.08 seconds. The class went silent. Ida stared at his own time, then at the scoreboard. That's superhuman. Even with a speed quirk, I don't have a speed quirk, Izuku said cheerfully. I'm just fast. Grip strength test. A device measured how hard someone could squeeze. Izuku picked it up, looked at it thoughtfully, and squeezed. The device exploded into pieces. Oops, he said, not sounding sorry at all. I think I broke it. Aizawa pulled out a more durable model, reinforced steel, designed to measure up to 5 tons of force. Try this one, Izuku squeezed. The number climbed 100 kilograms, 500 kilograms, 1,000 kilograms, 2,000 kilograms. It stopped at 3,847 kilograms. Huh, Izuku said. That's more than I expected. Good to know. Standing long jump, Izuku jumped over the sandpit entirely, clearing the building on the other side, and had to run back from where he landed 200 meters away. Seated toe touch. He folded himself in half like origami, pressing his chest flat against his legs. Sit-ups. He did 500 in the time limit without breaking a sweat, and then came the ball throw. Bakugo had set the bar at 705.2 meters with his explosion-powered throw. Several other students had scored respectably. Uraraka got infinity by making the ball weightless, which was clever if technically cheating. Izuku stepped up to the plate, tossing the ball up and catching it a few times to get a feel for its weight. Any restrictions, sensei, or can I throw this as hard as I want? Aizawa looked at him suspiciously. Just throw the ball, Midoriya. Cool. Izuku wound up, went through the throwing motion, and then stopped. He pressed his palms together in prayer position. The change was instant. His relaxed posture vanished, replaced by absolute focus. The air around him seemed to shimmer with heat that wasn't quite heat, pressure that wasn't quite pressure. First hand, he whispered. The golden arm manifested, massive and radiant. It flicked the ball upward almost gently. The ball vanished, literally disappeared from sight, moving so fast it came invisible. The sonic boom knocked everyone in the class flat on their backs. Windows shattered in nearby buildings. Birds fell from the sky, stunned by the shockwave. 15 seconds later, the ball was still climbing. 20 seconds. The ball was a tiny dot in the stratosphere. 30 seconds. It disappeared entirely from view. Aizawa's measuring device tried to calculate the distance. The number kept climbing. 5,000 meters, 10,000 meters, 15,000 meters. It finally stopped at 47,382 meters. The class lay on the ground, stunned into silence by the shockwave, staring at the impossible number. Izuku looked at the scoreboard and shrugged. Not bad. I was aiming for 50,000, but I probably threw at the wrong angle. Aizawa stared at him for a long moment. Then he activated his quirk, Erasure. His eyes glowed red, his hair defied gravity, and an invisible effect washed over Izuku. Nothing happened. Izuku tilted his head. Scary eyes, sensei. Do they do something? My quirk erases other quirks, Aizawa said slowly. But it's not working on you. That's because I don't have a quirk. Izuku appeared directly behind Aizawa, moving faster than the hero could track. You can't erase pure skill. He poked Aizawa's cheek. Boop. Aizawa spun around, capture weapon already unspooling from his neck, ready to restrain this impossible student. But Izuku was back at his starting position, hands in his pockets, looking innocent. The final scores, Aizawa said after a long pause, clearly deciding to address this insanity later. First place, Midoriya Izuku. Second place, Todoroki Shoto. Third place, Ida Tenya. He listed off the rankings. No one was surprised when Mineta Minoru, a short student with a ball-based quirk who had scored terribly in almost everything, came in last place. Mineta, Aizawa said. You're expelled? Izuku interrupted. You were never going to actually expel anyone, were you, sensei? The class gasped. Aizawa's eye twitched. What makes you say that? Because this is a test of character, not ability. Izuku pulled out his magazine and started reading. You wanted to see who would panic under pressure, who who would support their classmates, who would try their hardest even when facing impossible odds. Actual expulsion based purely on physical performance would be irrational. It would eliminate people with support-type quirks, or late bloomers, who might become excellent heroes later. UA wouldn't implement a system that's stupid. Aizawa stared at him. Also, Izuku continued, your reputation says you've expelled entire classes before, but those students always end up back at UA eventually. You expel them, they train harder, and you readmit them when they've proven they can overcome adversity. It's a teaching method, not an actual policy. The silence stretched out. Finally, Aizawa's mouth twitched in what might have been a smile. You're absolutely right. The expulsion was a logical ruse to make you give your maximum effort. The class erupted in protests and relieved sighs. Midoriya, Aizawa said quietly, stay after class. We need to talk. After the other students left, Izuku sat on a bench while Aizawa stood in front of him, arms crossed. Where did your power come from? Training, Izuku said simply. For how long? 5 years. 10,000 punches of gratitude every day. Aizawa ran a hand through his hair. That's not enough to explain what you can do. People train their entire lives and don't become superhuman. Most people train wrong. Izuku closed his magazine. They train their quirks, which makes them dependent on genetic lottery. I train my body and mind to transcend normal human limitation. There's a difference. Can others learn what you've learned? Maybe, if they're dedicated enough. If they're willing to isolate themselves for years and push past the point where their body screams at them to stop. Izuku's expression was unrateable, but most people aren't. Most people want power without sacrifice. They want results without suffering. They want to be special because of genetics, not because they earned it. Aizawa was quiet for a moment. Why did you come to UA? With your power, you could do whatever you want. I want to fight strong opponents. Izuku's grin returned. Villains are the only people in society who are genuinely trying to kill heroes. That makes them interesting, but I need a hero license to legally fight them. So here I am. You want to be a hero so you can fight people. I want to be a hero so I can fight people who deserve it. Izuku corrected. There's a difference. I'm not going to attack random civilians. That would be boring. They're too weak. But villains, people who've trained their powers, who've developed techniques, who've become genuinely dangerous, those people might give me a good fight. That's not a heroic motivation. I'll still save people, Izuku pointed out. If someone's in danger while I'm fighting, I'll help them. I'm not a villain. I'm just selective about what motivates me. Aizawa studied him for a long moment. All Might thinks you could go either way. Hero or villain. What do you think? I think All Might is dying and looking for someone to replace him, and I'm not interested in that job. Izuku stood up. I don't want to be a symbol of peace. I don't want the responsibility of holding society together. I just want to fight strong opponents and enjoy myself. If that happens to help people along the way, great. If not, he shrugged. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. That attitude is going to cause problems. Probably. Izuku walked toward the exit, but it'll be fun to see what kind of problems they are. The next few days at UA were relatively calm by Izuku's standards. He attended classes, aced written exams without studying, and generally confused his teachers by being simultaneously the most talented student they'd ever seen and the most frustrating to deal with. He showed up to Hero Basic Training reading his magazine. All Might, teaching in his muscular form, tried to confiscate it. Izuku held it above his head, using his superior height and speed to keep it away from the massive hero. Sensei, this is educational material. I'm learning about photography composition. That's inappropriate for school. All Might bellowed in his typical over-the-top style. It's adults in swimsuits. Completely legal. Besides, if you can teach class while flexing and posing every 5 seconds, I can read while listening to lectures. Izuku tucked the magazine away. What's today's lesson? All Might decided to pick his battles and moved on. The lesson was indoor combat training. Students would be paired off, heroes versus villains, in fake building scenarios. The villains would guard a fake weapon. The heroes would try to capture the villains or touch the weapon. All Might drew lots to determine teams. Izuku got paired with Uraraka, the brown-haired girl from the entrance exam. Their opponents were Bakugo and Ida. Uraraka looked nervous. Midoriya, I know you're really strong, but Bakugo seems to really hate you. This might get intense. Good, Izuku said cheerfully. I've been wanting to see how much he's improved since middle school. That's not a normal response to someone hating you. I'm not a normal person. He handed her his magazine. Hold this for me. I don't want it getting damaged in the fight. She took it automatically, then realized what she was holding and flushed red. This is educational, Izuku said firmly. Now, here's the plan. I'm going to fight Bakugo and enjoy myself. You sneak past us and either capture Ida or touch the weapon. Sound good? That's not really teamwork. It's efficient teamwork. Trust me. The exercise began. Team Villain, Bakugo and Ida set up in a multi-story building, with Ida guarding the weapon on the top floor, and Bakugo patrolling the lower floors. Team Hero, Izuku and Uraraka entered through the ground floor. They'd barely taken 3 steps when Bakugo dropped from the ceiling, explosions blazing. Found you, Deku! The nickname made Izuku's eye twitch, but he let it slide. Bakugo launched a devastating explosion-powered punch. Izuku sidestepped. Still telegraphing your attacks. How disappointing. Shut up! Bakugo unleashed a barrage of explosions, each one powerful enough to demolish walls. Izuku weaved through them casually, hands in his pockets. You've gotten stronger, I'll give you that, but you're still fighting angry. That makes you predictable. I'll show you predictable. Bakugo activated his ultimate move, a massive explosion that consumed the entire hallway. When the smoke cleared, Izuku stood in exactly the same spot, completely unharmed. He'd moved through the explosion at the precise angles needed to avoid the heat, using the shockwave to stabilize his position. My turn, he said softly. He pressed his palms together. Bakugo's eyes widened. He'd seen this stance before, during the entrance exam footage. Nothing good came after this stance. First hand. The golden arm manifested and flicked Bakugo's chest. Just a flick. Not a slap, not a punch. The gentlest possible strike Izuku could deliver. Bakugo flew backward through 3 walls, finally stopping when he hit a support pillar hard enough to dent it. He slumped to the ground, conscious but completely winded. You're getting stronger, Izuku called out. Keep training. In a few years, you might actually be interesting to fight. He turned to Uraraka, who was staring in shock. See? I bought you time. Go get the weapon. She nodded mutely and ran for the stairs. Upstairs, Ida was trying to use strategy and environmental awareness to protect the weapon. He'd positioned it in a corner, marked escape routes, and prepared contingency plans. Then Uraraka burst through the door, touched the weapon with her quirk, and made it weightless. Capture complete. All Might's voice boomed through the speakers. Hero team wins. Ida stared at the floating weapon in disbelief. But I had a strategy. Your strategy didn't account for your partner getting 1 shot in the first 10 seconds, Uraraka said apologetically. Sorry. Back in the observation room, the other students watched the footage with mixed expressions of awe and concern. He's insane, someone muttered. He's powerful, Todoroki corrected, studying Izuku's movements. Completely different from anyone I've ever seen. He's dangerous, a frog-like girl named Asui added. Did you see how easily he took down Bakugo? And he was holding back. All Might watched the replay, his expression unreadable. Young Midoriya was an enigma, powerful beyond measure, with combat instincts that rivaled professional heroes, but motivated purely by the desire for challenging fights. That kind of power with that kind of motivation, it could go either way. He would need to watch this student very carefully. The days passed. Izuku dominated every training exercise with almost casual ease. He sparred with classmates and defeated them without breaking a sweat. He studied hero theory and pointed out flaws in established tactics. He showed up to every class reading his magazine and somehow still maintained perfect grades. The other students didn't know what to make of him. He was friendly enough, cracking jokes, offering combat advice, helping people with homework. But there was something off about him, something that made them instinctively wary. Maybe it was the way his eyes lit up whenever someone mentioned villains. Maybe it was how he seemed more interested in the challenge of combat than in actually saving people. Maybe it was the fact that he'd casually mentioned wanting to fight All Might, just to see how it would go. Whatever it was, Class 1A had collectively decided that Midoriya Izuku was someone to be respected, admired, and slightly feared. The USJ incident came 2 weeks into the semester. The unforeseen simulation joint, a massive training facility designed to simulate various disaster scenarios. Floods, fires, landslides, ruins, everything a hero might encounter in the field. 13, a rescue specialist hero, was going to teach them proper rescue techniques. Class 1A loaded onto a bus, excited about their first major training exercise outside of campus. Izuku sat in the back, reading his magazine as usual. Asui sat next to him. She seemed to be one of the few students who wasn't intimidated by him. Midoriya, can I ask you something? Ribbit? Sure. Why do you want to be a hero? He lowered his magazine and looked at her. Honestly, I don't particularly want to be a hero. I want to fight strong opponents. Being a hero just lets me do that legally. That's really honest, Ribbit. She tilted her head. But you do save people, right? Like you saved Uraraka during the entrance exam. If someone's in danger and I'm nearby, I'll help them. I'm not a villain. He shrugged. I just don't get emotional about it. Saving people is fine. Fighting strong opponents is better. What if you had to choose? Save someone or fight a strong opponent? He considered the question seriously. Depends on the person and the opponent. If it's someone I care about, I'd probably save them. If it's a random stranger versus the fight of a lifetime, I'd have to think about it. Asui nodded slowly. At least you're honest about it. Ribbit, most people would lie and say they'd always choose to save people. Lying about it doesn't change who I am. Izuku went back to his magazine. I'd rather be honest about my priorities than pretend to be something I'm not. The bus arrived at the USJ. The building was massive, with different zones visible through the glass ceiling, a shipwreck zone, a landslide zone, a fire zone, and more. 13 greeted them enthusiastically, launching into a speech about the importance of rescue work and how quirks could be used to help people rather than just fight villains. Izuku tuned it out. He'd heard this kind of speech before, well-meaning, idealistic, focused on the noble aspects of heroism. Nothing wrong with it, but not particularly relevant to his interests. Then the lights flickered. A black portal opened in the center of the USJ, and villains started pouring through. Izuku's eyes lit up like it was Christmas morning. Finally, he breathed. Something interesting. The League of Villains emerged from the portal, dozens of them, maybe 100, all with various quirks and weapons. Leading them was a man covered in disembodied hands, scratching at his neck nervously, Shigaraki Tamura, the leader, and behind him a massive creature with exposed brain matter and incredible muscle mass. The Nomu, a bioengineered weapon designed specifically to kill All Might. Most of Class 1A panicked, some froze in fear, others prepared to fight. Izuku just grinned. "Students, evacuate!" 13 shouted. "This is a real villain attack." "Get to safety and..." "Sensei," Izuku interrupted. "Can I fight them?" Everyone stared at him. "Are you insane?" Ida yelled. "These are real villains we're not ready for." "You're not ready for this," Izuku corrected. "I am." He started walking toward the villains, hands in his pockets, that manic grin spreading across his face. Aizawa jumped down from the entrance plaza, his capture weapon already deployed. "Midoriya, get back with the others. I'll handle." "With respect, Sensei, you'll get yourself killed." Izuku didn't stop walking. "Your quirk doesn't work on me. Remember? That means it probably doesn't work on that big ugly thing either. You're an erasure specialist facing a physically enhanced opponent. Bad matchup." "That's not your decision to make." Aizawa's weapon shot out, wrapping around Izuku to pull him back. Izuku slipped out of the bindings like water, moving too fast for the capture weapon to hold him. "Sensei, please. I've been bored for 2 weeks. Let me have this." He reached the bottom of the stairs before anyone could stop him. The villains noticed him immediately. A teenager, alone, walking toward them with his hands in his pockets and a smile on his face. "Look at this idiot," one villain laughed. "Does he think he's a hero already? I'll crush him." Another villain with a strength enhancement quirk charged forward with a roar. Izuku sidestepped casually. The villain's punch missed by miles. Izuku stuck out his foot. Sparta Steph, the villain tripped and face-planted into the concrete. "Next," Izuku said cheerfully, 3 more villains attacked simultaneously. Fire breath, blade arms, and a stretching quirk. A coordinated assault that should have overwhelmed a single opponent. Izuku weaved through the attacks like he was dancing. Fire breath missed and set another villain on fire. Blade arms got tangled with stretching limbs. All three villains ended up in a heap. "This is your elite villain team?" Izuku called out to Shigaraki. "I'm disappointed." Shigaraki's visible eye twitched behind his hand mask. "Nomu, kill him." The massive creature moved. It was fast. Impossibly fast for something that size. It crossed the distance to Izuku in less than a second, its fist already swinging with enough force to pulverize concrete. Izuku's grin widened. "Now, this is more like it." He dodged the first punch by millimeters, the second punch, the third. The Nomu unleashed a barrage of attacks, each one faster and more powerful than the last. Its regeneration quirk. Quirk meaning it could push its body beyond normal limits without consequence. Izuku dodged them all, laughing maniacally. Yes, finally, something that can actually move. He hopped on one foot, hands still in his pockets, treating this like a game. "Come on, big guy. Is that all you've got?" The Nomu roared and activated its shock absorption quirk. Its muscles bulged, its eyes glowed red, and it launched a punch that created a sonic boom. Izuku pressed his palms together. Third hand. Slap. The golden arm manifested and drove the Nomu into the ground. The impact created a crater 20 feet deep. Cracks spiderwebbed across the entire plaza. The Nomu's head was completely flattened. Then it regenerated. The skull reformed, the brain matter restructured, and the creature stood up like nothing had happened. Izuku's eyes went wide with pure, unfiltered joy. "Oh my god, you regenerate. You're a punching bag that fixes itself." He started laughing. "This is the best day ever!" He unleashed a relentless assault. Fifth hand! Slap! The Nomu crashed through a wall. Seventh hand! Slap! It flew into the ceiling. 11th hand! Slap! It cratered the floor again. Every time the Nomu regenerated, Izuku would hit it from a different angle, testing its limits, experimenting with different levels of force. He wasn't trying to win, he was playing. Treating the ultimate anti-All Might weapon like a volleyball, Shigaraki watched in horror. This isn't possible. The Nomu was designed to fight All Might. It has shock absorption and regeneration. It should be invincible. Your science project is fun, Izuku called out between strikes, but it's still just a punching bag. It can't think, can't adapt, can't surprise me. 19th hand. Slap. The Nomu went through the shipwreck zone's ship. 23rd hand. Slap, slap, slap. Multiple hits from multiple angles, juggling the creature in the air. 31st hand. Slap. The Nomu embedded in a cliff face. The other villains were fleeing now, letting them. This wasn't what they'd signed up for. They'd been told this would be an easy attack on students, that the Nomu would kill All Might, that the League of Villains would make a statement. Instead, some teenage monster was using their ultimate weapon as a toy. Izuku landed in front of the Nomu as it regenerated yet again. He was breathing slightly harder now, not from exhaustion, but from excitement. Okay, one more hit. Let's make it memorable. He pressed his palms together with utmost seriousness. The golden avatar manifested in full. All 100 arms materialized at once, towering over the USJ, radiant and terrifying. 99th hand. 99 arms struck simultaneously. The sound was like reality itself breaking. The shockwave shattered every window in the facility. The force of the impact created a crater so deep it exposed the facility's foundation. The Nomu flew, not through walls, through the entire facility. It punched through the dome's roof, rocketed into the sky, and disappeared from view entirely. Izuku watched it go with satisfaction. Home run. He turned to Shigaraki and the remaining villains, cracked his knuckles. So, who's next? The portal villain, Kurogiri, immediately opened a warp gate. We're leaving. Now! But the plan, Shigaraki started. The plan is over! Kurogiri's voice was panicked. That child just launched our Nomu into orbit. We are leaving before he does the same to us. The remaining villains fled through the portal. Shigaraki hesitated, staring at Izuku with visible confusion and rage. You, what are you? You're not a normal hero student. You're bored, Izuku said flatly. You guys were supposed to be interesting. You brought a whole army and a bioweapon, and it was still boring. We'll meet again, Shigaraki promised, scratching at his neck. And next time bring someone stronger, Izuku interrupted. Or don't bother showing up at all. The portal closed. The villains were gone. Izuku stood alone in the destroyed USJ, surrounded by unconscious villains who hadn't escaped fast enough. He looked up at the hole in the ceiling where the Nomu had disappeared. Then he smiled. That was actually kind of fun. All Might arrived 3 minutes later. bursting through the doors in his muscular form, ready to save the day. He found Class 1A huddled together, unharmed but shaken. 13 was fine. Aizawa was standing in the middle of the plaza looking shell-shocked, and Izuku was sitting on a pile of unconscious villains reading his magazine. "I am here!" All Might shouted automatically. Then he processed the scene. What happened here?" "Villains attacked," Izuku said without looking up. "I dealt with them. Their boss had a bioweapon that could regenerate. I punted it into space. The rest fled. Pretty standard stuff." All Might stared at the destruction. The crater, the broken dome, the dozens of unconscious villains. "Young Midoriya, did you do all this by yourself?" "Yep, class is safe. Villains are defeated. Can we go home now? I'm hungry." All Might looked at Aizawa. "Is he serious?" "Unfortunately," Aizawa muttered. "I tried to stop him. He moved too fast." "The Nomu was designed to fight me," All Might said slowly. "It had shock absorption and regeneration." "How did you hit it 99 times simultaneously with enough force to overcome its regeneration and launch it out of the atmosphere?" Izuku explained. "Simple physics. Any other questions?" All Might didn't have words. He'd been prepared to fight the ultimate anti-symbol of peace weapon, possibly sacrifice himself to protect the students. Instead, a 15-year-old had casually launched it into space and gone back to reading pornography. Let's get everyone back to campus." All Might finally said, "We'll file reports, contact the police, and young Midoriya, we need to have a serious conversation about appropriate responses to villain attacks." "I saved everyone," Izuku pointed out. "Textbook heroism. You punted a living creature into space. A living creature that was designed to kill you," Izuku corrected. "I did you a favor. You're welcome." All Might pinched the bridge of his nose. He could feel a headache forming. This student was going to be the death of him. The media had a field day with the USJ incident. Mysterious student defeats villain army. Who is the Golden Bodhisattva? UA's secret weapon revealed. Footage from the security cameras had leaked somehow. Grainy video of Izuku's fight with the Nomu went viral. News programs analyzed it frame by frame. Quirk specialists debated what kind of power could produce that effect. And Izuku's response to all the attention? He showed up to class the next day reading his magazine like nothing had happened. Principal Nedzu called him to his office. "Midoriya," the Chimera principal said cheerfully. "You've become quite famous." "I noticed." Izuku sat down uninvited. "The media is annoying. They keep trying to interview me." "Can you blame them? You single-handedly defeated a villain attack that was meant to kill All Might himself." Nedzu sipped his tea. "The Hero Public Safety Commission wants to know everything about you, your power, your training, your background. Tell them I'm quirkless and I trained really hard." Izuku shrugged. "That's the truth." "They don't believe that." "Not my problem," Nedzu chuckled. "You're fascinating, you know. Most students would be terrified after facing real villains. You seem energized." "Because I finally got to fight someone interesting." Izuku's eyes gleamed. "That Nomu was fun. Not amazing, it couldn't think strategically, but it was durable enough to make me use more than 10% of my power. That's rare." 10%? Nedzu's eyes narrowed. "You were holding back that much?" "The 99th hand is nowhere near my maximum output. If I'd used Zero Hand, my ultimate technique, there wouldn't be a USJ left standing." Izuku said it casually, like discussing the weather. "I have to hold back in training, otherwise I'd kill people by accident." Nedzu set down his teacup very carefully. "Young Midoriya, I need you to understand something. UA is a school. We train heroes. We do not train weapons." "Good thing I'm training myself, then." Izuku stood up. "Is that all, Principal? I have class." "One more thing." Nedzu's voice lost its cheerful tone. "The villains will come after you specifically now. You humiliated them, defeated their ultimate weapon, made them look weak. They will want revenge." Izuku's grin widened. "I'm counting on it." The sports festival was announced a week later, Japan's biggest hero event. Millions of viewers, pro heroes scouting for sidekicks and interns, the perfect stage for young heroes to showcase their abilities. Class 1A was buzzing with excitement and nervousness. This was their chance to prove themselves on a national stage. Izuku's reaction? Finally. Maybe some of the other schools have strong students. Bakugo slammed his hand on Izuku's desk. "I'm going to destroy you at the festival. I'll show everyone that I'm stronger than you." "You're not," Izuku said flatly. "You're not even close, but sure, if we get matched up, I'll enjoy watching you try." "You. Arrogant." "Bakugo," Todoroki interrupted, appearing beside them. Half his hair was white, half was red, his dual-element quirk made visible. "Don't waste your energy on him. Save it for the festival." He looked at Izuku with mismatched eyes, one gray, one turquoise. "I'm going to beat you. I'll prove that my power, my mother's power, is enough. I don't need his flames." "Your dad's flames, you mean?" Izuku closed his magazine. "Yeah, I know about your family drama. Endeavor's second wife, the arranged marriage for quirk breeding, the whole thing. It's public record if you know where to look." Todoroki's expression hardened. "Don't talk about things you don't understand." "I understand that you're handicapping yourself out of spite." Izuku stood up, meeting Todoroki's eyes. "You have a powerful fire quirk, and you refuse to use it because you hate your dad. That's your choice. But don't expect me to take you seriously if you're fighting at half strength." "My ice is enough too. Your ice is impressive, but it's not enough to beat me." Izuku walked past him. "Use your full power at the festival, Todoroki. Otherwise, you're just another disappointing opponent." The sports festival arrived on a perfect spring day. The stadium was packed. Tens of thousands of spectators filled the stands. Cameras broadcast to millions of viewers across Japan and internationally. All the first-year students gathered in the arena. Class 1A, Class 1B, the general studies classes, the support classes. Hundreds of teenagers, all competing for glory. President Mike's voice boomed across the stadium. "Welcome to UA's Sports Festival, where future heroes will show us what they're made of." Midnight, wearing her incredibly revealing hero costume, stood on the stage. The student representative will now give the opening speech. From Class 1A, which survived a real villain attack. "Midoriya Izuku." Izuku walked up to the microphone, hands in his pockets. Every camera in the stadium focused on him. Millions of people watching, waiting to hear what the mysterious student who defeated the USJ villains would say. He leaned into the microphone. "I'm going to win. The rest of you are just here to make it interesting." He paused. "Probably won't even manage that, honestly. Try not to bore me too much." The stadium went silent, then erupted in mixed boos and cheers. Bakugo looked ready to murder him. Todoroki's expression was unrateable. The other students were glaring. Midnight giggled into her hand. "Well, that was certainly confident. Let's see if he can back it up. The first event is the obstacle race." The obstacle race was brutal by design, a 4-kilometer course around the stadium, filled with traps, robots, and hazards. First place would get the most points. Last place would be eliminated from the festival entirely. The starting gate opened. Hundreds of students surged forward, quirks activating immediately as they jockeyed for position. Todoroki froze the ground, trapping dozens of students in ice. Bakugo explosion jumped over the crowd. Ida engine dashed through a gap. Izuku pulled out his magazine and started reading while hopping on one leg. Is he seriously reading during the race?" President Mike's commentary was equal parts incredulous and amused. Izuku hopped past the frozen students. Hopped past the first obstacle. Massive robots from the entrance exam. He didn't even look up from his magazine as he casually slapped them into scrap metal. He hopped across the tightrope section, balancing on one leg while turning pages. He hopped through the minefield, somehow landing between every single mine without setting them off, and he crossed the finish line in first place, still on one leg, having never put down his magazine. The crowd went insane. That's not normal," President Mike shouted. "He just completed a 4-kilometer obstacle course on one leg while reading. What is he?" Izuku finally put both feet down and closed his magazine. That was barely a warm-up. What's next? The second event was the cavalry battle. Students would form teams of 4. Each team would have a combined point value based on their placement in the obstacle race. The goal was to steal other teams' headbands while protecting your own. Izuku's first place finish meant his team would have 10,000 points. Every other team immediately targeted him. "This'll be fun," Izuku said cheerfully. Finding teammates proved difficult. Most students were too scared to team up with the walking target. Finally, Uraraka volunteered. She still felt like she owed him for the entrance exam. A pink-skinned girl named Ashido joined because it sounded fun, and a purple-haired general studies student named Shinso agreed, though he looked nervous. Okay, team, Izuku said as Midnight explained the rules. Here's the strategy. I carry all of you on my shoulders and run really fast. Sound good? That's not a strategy, Uraraka protested. It is if I'm fast enough. The battle began. Every team in the arena immediately rushed toward Izuku. Izuku grinned, pressed his palms together briefly, not to attack, just to activate his aura, and moved. He was a blur. Carrying 3 people on his shoulders, he dodged between teams, weaved through attacks, avoided quirks from every direction. Fire, ice, explosions, capture weapons, nothing could touch him. When teams got too close, he'd casually slap their headbands off without breaking stride. Third hand, slap. 4 teams lost their headbands simultaneously. Fifth hand, slap. 6 more teams down, he was playing tag with the entire arena and winning. Todoroki's team tried to freeze him. Izuku jumped over the ice, still carrying his teammates. Bakugo's team tried to blast him. Izuku moved through the explosions like smoke. By the end of the 15 minutes, Izuku's team had accumulated headbands worth 15,000 points. They hadn't lost a single one of their own. This is insane! Present Mike was losing his mind. Team Midoriya didn't just win. They dominated. They collected more points than everyone else combined. Izuku set his teammates down. Good job, team. Anyone want ramen after this? Fighting makes me hungry. The final event was one-on-one tournament battles. The matchups were displayed on the massive screen. Midoriya versus Shinso, Todoroki versus Sero, Bakugo versus Uraraka, Ida versus Hatsume, and others. Izuku's first match was against Shinso, his own teammate from the cavalry battle. They stood across from each other in the arena. Shinso looked nervous but determined. I know I can't beat you in a straight fight, Shinso said, but my quirk is brainwashing. If you respond to me verbally, I can control you. So, say something. Izuku tilted his head. Interesting quirk. Very useful for hero work. You could talk down hostage situations, interrogate villains, de-escalate confrontations, but it has a weakness. Don't talk if you know what's good for it. It requires verbal response, which means it doesn't work on opponents who know about it and stay silent. It also probably doesn't work on people with strong enough mental resistance. Izuku tapped his forehead. I've spent 5 years training my mind as well as my body. Meditation, mental discipline, absolute focus. Your quirk won't work on me even if I do respond. Shinso's confident expression cracked slightly. But I appreciate the strategy, Izuku continued. Using psychology against opponents who don't know your quirk's activation conditions. That's smart. Keep developing that. You have potential. Start! Midnight shouted. Izuku appeared in front of Shinso instantly, poked his forehead gently. Boop! You're out of bounds. Shinso stumbled backward, crossed the line, and the match was over in less than 2 seconds. The crowd was silent. Then erupted in confused applause. That was fast! Present Mike stammered. Too fast! Did anyone even see him move? Izuku walked off the field, already pulling out his magazine. The other matches were more interesting to watch. Todoroki versus Sero. Todoroki created a massive glacier that filled half the arena. Instant win, but overkill. Bakugo versus Uraraka, a genuinely good fight. Uraraka used strategy and her quirk creatively, creating a meteor shower of debris. But Bakugo's raw power won out. He respected her effort enough to go all out, which was probably the most character growth he'd shown all year. Ida versus Hatsume. The support course student used Ida as a demonstration platform for her inventions. He eventually won, but looked exhausted and embarrassed. The quarterfinals approached. Izuku's match was against Todoroki. This was the fight everyone wanted to see. Izuku and Todoroki stood across from each other in the arena. The crowd was silent with anticipation. Todoroki's right side erupted with ice. I'm going to beat you with my mother's power alone. I don't need his flames. Still on about that? Izuku sighed. Your family drama is boring, Todoroki. I don't care about your dad, your arranged marriage backstory, or your refusal to use half your quirk. I just want a good fight. Then you'll be disappointed. Todoroki sent a wave of ice across the arena. Izuku dodged casually. Yep, already disappointed. More ice. Faster, larger, trying to catch Izuku in a prison of frost. Todoroki was skilled. He could create structures, walls, slides, using his ice with impressive precision. But Izuku was faster. He weaved through every attack, hands in his pockets, expression bored. Is this really all you've got? I've seen you train. You're better than this. Or you would be if you weren't handicapping yourself. Shut up! Todoroki unleashed his biggest ice attack yet, a glacier that consumed the entire arena. Izuku stood on top of it, having jumped before it could reach him. Use your fire. I won't. I refuse to use his power. I'll show him and everyone that I don't need it. Oh my god, you're so angsty. Izuku threw his hands up in exasperation. Listen, kid, I get it. Your dad's an asshole. He only married your mom for quirk breeding. He trained you too hard. He probably abused your family. That sucks. It genuinely does. Todoroki looked surprised by the sudden empathy. But, Izuku continued, you're punishing yourself more than him. He wants you to use both sides of your quirk? Fine, don't. But then don't complain when you lose because you refuse to fight at full strength. You're not rebelling against him. You're just being stupid. You don't understand. I understand that you're wasting your potential out of spite. I understand that you're more concerned with proving a point to your dad than actually becoming strong. Izuku's eyes hardened. And I understand that you're boring me. He pressed his palms together. Todoroki's eyes widened. He'd seen footage of the USJ. He knew what came after that stance. Use your fire, emo boy, Izuku said quietly, or I'm ending this now. Todoroki hesitated. His left side, his fire side, remained dormant. Fine. Izuku's expression turned cold. 23rd hand. 23 golden arms materialized. They didn't strike. They just appeared, hovering in the air, radiating overwhelming power. The heat from their presence was enough to start melting Todoroki's ice. The sheer pressure made breathing difficult for everyone in the stadium. Last chance, Izuku said. Show me what you can actually do. Todoroki looked at his left hand, at the flames he'd refused to use since childhood, at the power he'd rejected because of who it came from. Then he looked at Izuku, at the overwhelming force about to crush him if he didn't fight back with everything he had, and something inside him snapped. His left side erupted in flames. The crowd gasped. Endeavor, watching from the stands, stood up with a look of triumph. Todoroki combined his ice and fire, creating a massive attack that rivaled a professional hero's ultimate technique. Fire and ice spiraled together, consuming the arena in elemental fury. Izuku's grin returned. That's it? That's what I wanted to see? 99th hand. The golden avatar manifested fully. 99 arms struck the combined ice-fire attack. The collision created a shockwave that shattered windows across the entire stadium. Cameras shook. Spectators covered their ears. Present Mike's commentary was drowned out by the sheer noise. When the dust settled, Todoroki was lying unconscious 10 feet outside the ring. His uniform was torn, his body covered in minor burns and frostbite from his own quirk's backlash. Izuku stood in the center of a massive crater, completely unharmed, that satisfied grin on his face. Now that, he said, was almost interesting. Midnight declared him the winner. Medical staff rushed to help Todoroki. Izuku walked off the field, already pulling out his magazine. The semifinals were anticlimactic after that. Izuku versus Ida. Ida tried his best, using his engine quirk to maximum speed, but Izuku was faster. He won without even using his avatar. Bakugo versus Tokoyami. Bakugo's explosions countered Tokoyami's shadow quirk perfectly. Brutal but effective win, which meant the finals would be Izuku versus Bakugo. The rivalry that had started in middle school, coming to a head on the biggest stage in Japan. Bakugo and Izuku faced each other in the destroyed arena. Repair crews had given up trying to fix the damage from previous matches. I've been waiting for this, Bakugo growled, hands already crackling with explosions. I'm going to prove I'm better than you. I'm going to wipe that smug grin off your face. You're really not going to win, Izuku said conversationally, but I appreciate the enthusiasm. Makes it more fun. Shut up! Bakugo launched himself forward with explosion-powered speed, and then the fight began in earnest. Bakugo had improved since the entrance exam. His explosions were larger, more controlled. He developed new techniques, using explosions to change direction mid-air, creating smoke screens, generating flashbangs to disorient opponents. Against most opponents, it would have been devastating. Against Izuku, it was target practice. Every explosion missed. Every feint failed. Every strategy Bakugo had developed over years of combat training was countered effortlessly. Izuku didn't even use his avatar. He just dodged, weaved, and occasionally poked Bakugo to throw off his balance. Fight me seriously! Bakugo roared, sweat dripping from his palms as he prepared his biggest explosion yet. Okay, Izuku said, you asked for it. He pressed his palms together. The entire stadium went silent. Everyone had seen what happened when Midoriya Izuku got serious. Firsthand. Just the first. Not the 99th. Not even the 10th. Just one golden arm, manifesting for a split second. It flicked Bakugo's chest. Bakugo flew backward, crashed through the arena wall, through the spectator tunnel, and finally stopped when he hit the outer stadium wall. Midnight checked on him. He was conscious but completely unable to continue. Winner, Midoriya Izuku. The crowd erupted. Present Mike was screaming something incomprehensible. All Might stood in the commentary box, looking proud and concerned in equal measure. Izuku waved to the crowd lazily, then walked off to find food. He'd won the sports festival without breaking a sweat. The medal ceremony was predictably awkward. All Might stood on the podium in his muscular form, ready to present the medals. First place, Midoriya Izuku. Second place, Bakugo Katsuki. Third place, tied Todoroki Shoto and Tokoyami Fumikage. Bakugo had to be chained to his podium because he kept trying to attack Izuku. Todoroki looked contemplative, occasionally glancing at his left hand. Tokoyami was just happy to be there. All Might placed the gold medal around Izuku's neck. Young Midoriya, you've shown incredible power today. I hope you'll use it to become a great hero. I hope I'll find stronger opponents, Izuku replied cheerfully. All Might's smile twitched. That's not quite the heroic sentiment I was looking for. Sorry, Sensei, but I'm not interested in being the symbol of peace or whatever legacy you're planning. I just want good fights. Izuku patted the medal. This was fun, though. Some of these kids have potential. In a few years, they might actually be interesting. A few years? All Might looked at the devastated arena, at the students who'd been utterly dominated. Young Midoriya, you're only 15. Surely you don't think that I've peaked? God, no. I'm still developing my techniques, still training every day, still pushing my limits. Izuku's eyes gleamed with that familiar manic light. I won't be truly satisfied until I fight someone who can genuinely threaten my life. That's when I'll be at my strongest, when I'm facing death and loving every second of it. All Might didn't know what to say to that. This student, this incredibly powerful, talented student, had the mindset of a battle junkie, not a hero. Just try to save people along the way, All Might finally said. That's all I ask. Sure. Izuku agreed easily. Like I said, I'm not a villain. I'll help people if they're nearby. I just won't go out of my way to do it. The ceremony continued. The crowd cheered. The cameras broadcast to millions of viewers, and Izuku stood there, gold medal around his neck, already thinking about his next challenge. The hero killer arc began 2 weeks later. Hosu City had been experiencing a series of attacks by a villain who called himself Stain, the hero killer. His ideology was simple. Modern heroes were corrupt, motivated by money and fame rather than true heroism. He killed heroes he deemed fake and let true heroes live. Several pro-heroes had already died. The Hero Public Safety Commission was in full panic mode. Class 1A was doing their internship week, spending time with pro-heroes to get real-world experience. Most students chose flashy heroes. Bakugo went with Best Jeanist to work on his attitude problem. Uraraka chose a martial arts hero to improve her combat skills. Ida chose Manuel, a low-key hero in Hosu. For reasons he didn't share with the class, Izuku chose no one. You're required to do an internship, Aizawa said tiredly during their meeting. I don't need one. I'm already stronger than most pro-heroes. Izuku was reading his magazine as usual. Interning with them would be a waste of my time and theirs. It's not about strength, it's about learning how to be a professional hero. Dealing with civilians, handling media, managing crisis situations. Boring. Izuku turned a page. I'll do independent study in Hosu. I heard the hero killer is operating there. Seems interesting. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. You want to hunt Stain. I want to fight someone who's actually killed pro-heroes. That means he's probably strong. Izuku finally looked up. Everyone else this year has been disappointing. Sports festival, USJ, regular training. I dominated all of it without trying. I need a real challenge. Stain is a serial killer. This isn't a game. I know. Izuku's expression was serious for once. That's why I want to fight him. If he can kill heroes, he must be genuinely dangerous. That makes him worth fighting. And if you lose, I won't. Izuku said it with absolute certainty. But if by some miracle he's actually strong enough to threaten me, that would be amazing. I'd finally get the fight I've been looking for. Aizawa stared at him for a long moment, then sighed. Fine. Independent study in Hosu, but you report in every day, you don't engage villains without backup, and if I find out you went after Stain deliberately, I'm expelling you. Sure thing, Sensei. Izuku stood up. Thanks for being reasonable. He left the office. Aizawa knew damn well Izuku was going to hunt Stain anyway. He just hoped the hero killer would survive the encounter. Hosu City at night was beautiful and dangerous in equal measure. Izuku walked through the streets in civilian clothes, reading his magazine, looking for all the world like a normal teenager. But he was hunting. He'd researched Stain's patterns extensively. The hero killer targeted heroes in back alleys and quiet areas away from crowds. He used bladed weapons and a blood-based quirk that paralyzed victims. His ideology made him predictable. He'd attack heroes who seemed fake and ignore those who seemed genuine. Izuku just had to look like a hero worth killing. He found an empty alley and waited. 30 minutes passed. An hour. 2 hours. Then he heard it. The sound of combat. Metal on metal. Someone fighting for their life. Izuku smiled and ran toward the sound. The alley was narrow and dark. Ida was there, his armor damaged, his engines sputtering. A hero called Native lay paralyzed on the ground, and standing over both of them was the hero killer himself. Stain was exactly as the reports described. Ragged costume, wrapped in bandages, multiple blades, eyes that gleamed with fanatical intensity. Another fake hero, Stain said, raising his blade toward Ida. You're motivated by revenge, not justice. You came to kill me, not to save people. You don't deserve to call yourself a hero. You killed my brother, Ida shouted, his voice breaking. Ingenium was a true hero. He saved people. He was a showboat, Stain interrupted, fighting for fame and family legacy, not worthy. He lunged forward, blade aimed at Ida's throat. Izuku landed on a nearby dumpster, legs crossed, still reading his magazine. You talk too much, he said conversationally. You're ruining my reading time. Stain froze, his blade inches from Ida. He turned slowly to look at this new arrival, a teenager sitting casually, showing no fear, acting like this was an everyday occurrence. Who are you? Izuku Midoriya, UA first year. Currently hunting you because I heard you killed some pro heroes and figured you might be interesting to fight. Izuku closed his magazine and tucked it away carefully. You are the hero killer, right? Stain, the guy with the ideology about true heroism. You're from UA? Stain's eyes widened. You're a student? Then you should leave. I don't kill children. That's disappointing. Izuku hopped down from the dumpster. I was hoping you'd attack me, make this more fun. Stain's warrior instincts were screaming at him. This boy, this teenager, was dangerous. The way he moved, the complete lack of fear, the casual confidence. This wasn't a student. This was a predator. Leave now, Stain ordered. This doesn't concern you. But it does. Izuku walked forward slowly. See, I've been bored for months. Everyone at UA is too weak. The villains at USJ were disappointing. The sports festival was easy. I need someone who can actually threaten me. Someone who's killed trained heroes. Someone like you. He stopped walking, pressed his palms together. Stain's instincts went into overdrive. Every combat sense he'd developed through years of fighting heroes told him to run, right now, immediately. First hand, Izuku whispered. The golden arm manifested and struck. Stain moved. He was fast, incredibly fast, his combat experience letting him dodge by millimeters. The alley wall behind where he'd been standing ceased to exist, just obliterated, turned into dust and scattered across the city block. Stain stared at the destruction in shock. Oh, you dodged! Izuku's face split into that terrifying grin. Good, this might actually be fun. He unleashed a barrage. Third hand, fifth hand, seventh hand. Stain dodged, weaved, used his blades to redirect the golden arm's force. He was good, genuinely skilled. His combat fundamentals were excellent, honed through countless life-or-death battles against pro heroes, but he was fighting someone who had transcended normal human limitation. A golden arm grazed his shoulder. Just a glancing blow, barely making contact. His arm went numb instantly. The force transferred through his body, disrupting nerve signals, making him stumble. Interesting, Izuku mused. You can actually dodge some of my attacks. Most people can't even see them coming. Stain backed away, reassessing. This monster had power that rivaled All Might. No, exceeded All Might. The symbol of peace fought with overwhelming strength, but he could be predicted, countered if you were smart enough. This boy fought like a martial arts master with the power of a god. You are the worst kind of fake hero, Stain said, trying a different approach. You have no conviction, no purpose. You fight for the thrill of it, not to save people. I know, Izuku agreed cheerfully. I'm not trying to be a real hero. I just want good fights, and you're giving me one. Thank you. Stain attacked desperately. He was fighting for his life now, using every technique he'd developed, every trick he'd learned. He got close, licked Izuku's blood from a blade, activated his paralysis quirk. Nothing happened. Oh, that's your quirk? Izuku looked genuinely interested. Blood-based paralysis? Clever. But it won't work on me. My body's life energy is too strong. External effects like that can't override my internal control. Stain's blade was caught between Izuku's fingers. You're good, Izuku said seriously. Genuinely good. Your technique is excellent, your combat instincts are sharp, your ideology is stupid, but your skills are legitimate. He paused. But you're still boring. He flicked Stain's forehead with his free hand. The impact created a shockwave that shattered every window in the alley. Stain flew backward, hit a wall with bone-breaking force, and collapsed unconscious. The entire fight had lasted less than 3 minutes. Izuku looked down at the hero killer. This man who had terrorized heroes, who had killed with impunity, who had been the subject of national manhunts. Disappointing, he sighed. He turned to Ida and Native. You guys okay? Need medical attention? Ida stared at him in shock. You just defeated the hero killer. Like it was nothing. It was nothing, Izuku confirmed. He was slightly more interesting than average, but still not enough to really challenge me. He pulled out his phone. Calling the police now. You should probably get that leg looked at. Stain's blade cut pretty deep. Why did you save us? Ida asked. You said you only came to fight him. You guys happened to be here when I found him. Izuku shrugged. Would have been annoying to watch you die. Blood is hard to clean up. It was the same excuse he'd given Uraraka at the entrance exam. Saving people not out of heroic conviction, but because it would be inconvenient not to. Ida didn't know whether to be grateful or offended. The aftermath was complicated. The police arrived and arrested the unconscious Stain. Pro-heroes showed up, including Endeavor, who had been patrolling nearby. News crews materialized from nowhere, and Izuku stood in the middle of it all, giving a statement to the police while reading his magazine. So let me get this straight, the detective said, rubbing his temples. You, a 15-year-old UA student, deliberately hunted down the hero killer, found him attacking 2 people, and defeated him in less than 3 minutes. Yep, Izuku confirmed. Pretty straightforward. That's not... You weren't supposed to engage villains during your internship. You were supposed to observe and learn. I didn't have an internship. I was doing independent study, which included studying whether Stain was actually as strong as the reports suggested. Izuku turned a page. Turns out he wasn't. Kind of disappointing, really. Endeavor stepped forward. He'd been listening to the conversation with increasing interest. You defeated Stain alone? The hero killer who's murdered multiple pro-heroes? Yeah, wasn't that hard. Izuku looked at Endeavor with mild interest. You're Todoroki's dad, right? The number 2 hero? You look less impressive in person. Endeavor's flames flared. What did you say? I said you look less impressive in person. Your fire is big and flashy, but I bet your actual combat technique is mediocre. You rely on raw power, like most heroes. Izuku closed his magazine. Your son has more potential than you do. Once he stops being angsty about his family drama, he'll probably surpass you. You insolent. Want to fight about it? Izuku's eyes gleamed. I've been looking for strong opponents. You're the number 2 hero. That means you should be at least somewhat interesting, right? The police quickly stepped between them. No fighting. Endeavor, please. Midoriya, stop antagonizing pro-heroes. Izuku shrugged and went back to his magazine. The news crews had captured the entire exchange. By morning, it would be national news. UA student defeats hero killer and then insults the number 2 hero to his face. Izuku's reputation as the most powerful and most problematic student in UA's history was cemented. Back at UA, Aizawa was waiting in his office. You deliberately hunted Stain, he said flatly. Yep. After I explicitly told you not to. You told me not to engage villains without backup. I engaged him, then called backup afterward. Technically compliant. Izuku sat down uninvited, and I saved Ida and Native from getting killed. That's heroic, right? Your motivation wasn't heroic, you just wanted to fight him. But the result was the same. Izuku pulled out his magazine. The hero killer is arrested, 2 people are alive who might have died, and I got a mildly interesting fight out of it. Everyone wins. Aizawa stared at him for a long moment. You're going to be a problem, aren't you? Probably, Izuku agreed cheerfully, but I'm also going to be very effective. Those 2 things can coexist. Get out of my office. Sure thing, Sensei. Izuku stood up. By the way, when are we doing the final exams? I'm hoping the practical is against pro heroes. That sounds fun. Why do you want to fight pro heroes? Because students are boring. Izuku opened the door. I've beaten everyone in my class already. I need stronger opponents. Pro heroes are the next logical step. He left before Aizawa could respond. The exhausted teacher put his head in his hands. This student, this impossibly powerful, battle-obsessed student, was going to give him gray hair before the year was over. Word spread quickly through UA about Izuku's defeat of the hero killer. The students whispered about it in the halls. The teachers discussed it in staff meetings. The media analyzed it endlessly. Class 1A's reaction was mixed. He defeated Stain alone? Kirishima said in awe. That's so manly. He was supposed to be on internship, not hunting villains, Ida said quietly. He was still processing everything that had happened. Though, I suppose I should thank him. He saved my life. Of course he did, Uraraka said. Midoriya is not a bad person. He's just different. Different is one word for it, Todoroki muttered. He'd been thinking a lot since the sports festival about his power, his father, his own limitations. He's the strongest student here by a ridiculous margin. Maybe the strongest person in UA, including the teachers. Bakugo slammed his fist on his desk. I'll surpass him. Just because he's strong now doesn't mean... Bakugo, Todoroki interrupted. He defeated you at the sports festival with a casual flick. He defeated the hero killer, someone who killed multiple pro heroes in less than 3 minutes. We need to accept that we're nowhere near his level. Shut up. You'll what? Todoroki's voice was cold. Train harder, so will he. Get stronger, he'll get stronger faster. Face reality, we're competing for second place. First is already taken. The classroom went silent. It was a harsh truth, but truth nonetheless. Midoriya Izuku existed on a completely different level from everyone else. Final exams approached at the end of the semester. Written tests were standard academics. Izuku aced them without studying. The practical exam was announced. Students would fight in pairs against UA teachers. Pass or fail based on either capturing the teacher or escaping the designated area within 30 minutes. Izuku was paired with Bakugo. Their opponent was All Might himself. The symbol of peace. The #1 hero. The strongest hero in Japan. When the pairing was announced, the entire class went silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The teachers were taking Izuku seriously as a threat. They'd paired him with Bakugo, the second strongest student, and put them against the strongest hero as their examiner. This is going to be fun, Izuku said, grinning from ear to ear. Bakugo looked ready to explode. I don't need your help to beat All Might. You absolutely do, Izuku said flatly. You can't beat him alone. I can't beat him alone if he's fighting seriously. We need to work together. Like hell, we. Or, Izuku interrupted, you can try to solo him. Get knocked out in 5 seconds and I'll have to carry your unconscious body while escaping. Your choice. Bakugo ground his teeth but didn't argue further. The exam arena was an artificial city block. All Might stood in the center wearing weighted restraints to handicap himself. Policy for teacher versus student matches. Young Midoriya! Young Bakugo! All Might's voice boomed across the arena. Your objective is to either capture me with these handcuffs or escape through the gate. You have 30 minutes. Begin. Bakugo immediately launched himself forward. Explosions blazing, Izuku sighed and followed at a more leisurely pace. All Might dodged Bakugo's attacks easily, even handicapped. He countered with a wind pressure punch that sent Bakugo flying. You're too predictable, young Bakugo. A hero must think strategically. Izuku appeared behind All Might, moving faster than the hero could track. Poked his shoulder. Boop. You're leaving your back open, Sensei. All Might spun around, but Izuku was already gone, standing 20 feet away. Interesting, All Might said, his expression turning serious. You're faster than I expected, even faster than at the sports festival. I've been training, Izuku said simply. I train every day. Did you expect me to stagnate? No, but... All Might had to dodge as Bakugo attacked again. Young Bakugo, Coordinate with your partner. I don't need his help. Izuku watched Bakugo get punched through a building. Okay, new plan. I'll fight All Might seriously. You try not to die. He pressed his palms together. All Might's eyes widened. He'd seen the footage from the sports festival. He knew what that stance meant. Wait, young Midoriya. In a practical exam you shouldn't use. 13th hand. Multiple golden arms manifested. They struck from different angles simultaneously, coordinating in ways that should have been impossible. All Might dodged most of them. He was fast, incredibly fast, his combat experience letting him predict attack vectors. But one arm clipped his shoulder, the weighted restraint shattered. My word, All Might breathed. You broke through reinforced steel designed to withstand my full strength. Your weighted restraints are weaker than you think, Sensei. Izuku's grin widened. Want to make this interesting? Take them all off. Fight me at full power. This is an exam, not a real battle. I can't. Please? Izuku's eyes were gleaming with that manic light. I've been waiting for this. A chance to fight the symbol of peace himself, the strongest hero, the legend. Let me see what you can really do. All Might hesitated. This was against protocol, against every safety regulation UA had, but looking at young Midoriya's expression, that pure, unbridled desire for combat, All Might understood. This student didn't want to pass an exam. He wanted to fight a god. Very well, All Might said quietly. He removed the weighted restraints. But I won't hold back. If you're going to force my hand, I'll treat you as a genuine threat. Yes! Izuku's expression was pure joy. Finally! What followed was the most intense fight in UA's history. All Might moved at full speed, faster than sound, creating sonic booms with every step. His punches generated wind pressure strong enough to demolish buildings. Izuku matched him. The two of them became blurs, the stack moving too fast for cameras to track. The artificial city block was torn apart in seconds. Every punch All Might threw, Izuku dodged or deflected. Every golden arm Izuku manifested, All Might countered or avoided. Bakugo watched from the sidelines, forgotten, unable to even process what he was seeing. This wasn't a student fighting a teacher. This was two monsters trying to destroy each other. 31st hand. Multiple arms struck simultaneously. All Might tanked the hit and countered with a Detroit smash that created a crater 50 feet wide. Izuku rode the shockwave, using its force to propel himself higher. 43rd hand. The fight escalated. Building collapsed. The ground shattered. The very air screamed from the forces being unleashed. All Might was breathing hard now. Even in his prime, he'd rarely faced opponents who could match him like this. And this was a 15-year-old student. You're incredible, young Midoriya. All Might shouted between exchanges. Your power rivals professional heroes, but I can go higher. Izuku pressed his palms together with absolute seriousness. The golden avatar manifested fully. All 100 arms materialized at once. All Might's eyes widened. That's 99th hand. 99 arms struck. All Might blocked. He had no choice, couldn't dodge something that covered the entire arena. He put everything into defense, every ounce of his remaining strength. The collision created a shockwave that registered on seismographs across Japan. The exam arena was obliterated. The observation room's reinforced windows cracked. When the dust settled, All Might was down on one knee, breathing heavily, his costume torn. Izuku landed gracefully in front of him. That was amazing, Sensei. You're the first person who's actually made me use the 99th hand in a real fight. All Might coughed. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. His time limit, the amount of time he could maintain his muscular form, was almost up. You pass, All Might said quietly. Both of you. Both? Izuku looked around. Bakugo was unconscious in the rubble, like knocked out by a shockwave at some point. You worked together initially. That counts. All Might's form started to deflate. And you defeated me. Forced me to use more power than I've used in years. That definitely counts as passing. He shrunk down to his skeletal true form. You're terrifying, young Midoriya. In a few years, you'll surpass me completely. I already have, Sensei, Izuku said gently. You're dying. Your power is fading. That fight took everything you had left. He paused. But you're still strong. Stronger than most heroes, and definitely more interesting than I expected. All Might stared at him. You knew I was dying? I've known since the sports festival. I can see it in how you fight, how you breathe, how your power fluctuates. Izuku helped All Might stand. Who are you passing your quirk to? I assume that's your plan. Find a successor before you die completely. How did you know about that? Quirks that powerful don't just appear randomly. One for All is a legacy quirk passed from user to user. Izuku shrugged. I did research. It wasn't that hard to figure out. All Might was silent for a long moment. Then, I was considering you as a potential successor. I'm not interested, Izuku said immediately. I don't want to be the symbol of peace. I don't want the responsibility of holding society together. I just want good fights. Then what do you want to be? The strongest. Izuku's grin returned. I want to reach a level where fighting me is like fighting a natural disaster, where opponents question whether they're facing a human or a god, where the only question isn't if I'll win, but how spectacular the victory will be. All Might didn't know what to say to that. This student, this impossibly talented student, had the power to become the greatest hero in history, but he had the mindset of something else entirely, something that couldn't be categorized as hero or villain, just a pure warrior seeking eternal combat. School ended for the semester. Summer training camp was announced. A week in the mountains, intensive quirk training, supervised by the Pussycats hero team. Class 1A was excited. This was a chance to improve, to push their limits to become stronger heroes. Izuku was bored already. Mountains again? I lived in mountains for 5 years. What could they possibly teach me there? But he went anyway, because where there was training, there might be strong opponents, and where there were strong opponents, there would be good fights. The story of Midoriya Izuku, the reincarnation of Isaac Netero, the battle-obsessed monster disguised as a hero student, was just beginning, and the world had no idea what was coming. Summer arrived with oppressive heat that made the asphalt shimmer and turned UA's training grounds into a sauna. Most students dreaded the upcoming training camp, knowing it would push them to their absolute limits. Izuku Midoriya, however, was reading his magazine with the air of someone waiting for a mildly interesting distraction. The summer training camp will focus on strengthening your quirks and improving your ultimate moves, Aizawa announced, his perpetually tired eyes scanning the class. They lingered on Izuku for a moment longer than necessary. You'll be pushed harder than ever before. Some of you will break. That's the point. Izuku turned a page without looking up. An advertisement for a new ramen shop in downtown Tokyo. Promising. Midoriya. Aizawa's voice cut through the classroom chatter. I expect you to take this seriously. I always take things seriously, sensei. Izuku's tone was perfectly polite, perfectly neutral, and somehow deeply irritating, when they're worth taking seriously. Bakugo's hands sparked. You smug piece of language, Bakugo. Aizawa's capture weapon twitched. Save it for the training camp. You'll need that energy. The training camp location was deep in a forest owned by the Wild Pussycats, a hero team that specialized in mountain rescue. Their property sprawled across miles of untamed wilderness. Perfect for the kind of extreme training UA had in mind, Izuku stepped off the bus and immediately assessed his surroundings. Dense forest, mountainous terrain, limited escape routes. If this were an actual combat scenario, he'd position himself on the high ground and he caught himself. Not everything was a fight. Sometimes a forest was just a forest, though in his experience, forests like these usually contained something worth fighting. Listen up. Pixie Bob, one of the Pussycats, bounded forward with enthusiasm that seemed physically exhausting to witness. Before we get to the lodge, you've got to cross through the beast's forest. It's filled with my earth beasts, and you've got exactly 3 hours to make it through. The class groaned. Izuku folded his magazine and tucked it into his jacket. Oh? Pixie Bob's grin widened as she noticed his movement. Someone's actually taking this seriously? Your earth beasts sound interesting, Izuku said mildly. I'm curious how they'll handle real pressure. What followed was less a training exercise and more a one-sided massacre. The first beast, a massive earth construct shaped like a bear, lunged at the class with claws extended. Students scattered. Izuku walked forward, hands in his pockets. The beast's paw came down like an avalanche. Izuku's hand moved in a casual swatting motion. First hand. The golden aura that materialized around his hand was almost playful, a lazy flex of power. The earth beast exploded into dirt and rocks that scattered harmlessly across the forest floor. Huh? Izuku said. They break easily. Behind him, the class stared. Ahead of him, more beasts emerged from the forest floor, beasts drawn by Pixie Bob's quirk. A wolf, a lion, a massive serpent that wound through the trees. Izuku didn't even bother with hand techniques for these. He simply released a fraction of his aura, a wave of golden pressure that swept through the forest like a tsunami. Every earth beast in a 100-meter radius crumbled simultaneously, their structures unable to withstand the sheer force of his life energy. This is supposed to be training? Izuku's voice carried a note of genuine disappointment. I thought it would be more challenging. 3 hours became 3 minutes. The class arrived at the lodge to find Izuku already there, sitting on the porch with his magazine open, looking like he'd been waiting for ages. How did you? Kirishima started. I walked. Izuku turned a page. You all took a very inefficient route, and you stopped to fight the beasts individually instead of just clearing a path. We can't just clear a path like you. Bakugo's explosion punctuated his shout. Some of us have actual limitations. Sounds like a personal problem. Pixie Bob approached with an expression caught between awe and horror. Those beasts were supposed to last the entire exercise. You destroyed all of them? They were in my way. Izuku's tone suggested this was obvious. I removed them. Isn't that what heroes do? Remove obstacles? Mandalay, another pussycat, exchanged glances with her teammate. We're going to need to completely restructure the training regimen. Please do, Izuku said. I'd appreciate an actual challenge. The restructured training focused on quirk enhancement through extreme stress scenarios. For most students, this meant pushing their abilities past their normal limits. For Izuku, it meant trying to find ways to make the exercises interesting enough to stay awake. He was assigned to a mountain clearing where he was supposed to repeatedly practice his strongest attacks. The other students trained nearby, each struggling with their own regimens. Izuku stood in the center of his designated area, hands clasped in prayer position. 10th hand. The golden avatar materialized, a towering figure of light and power that dwarfed the trees around it. 10 hands spread in a perfect fan, each one capable of devastating force. The avatar's hands struck the designated target area. The mountain shook. Trees toppled. A crater the size of a house appeared in the earth. Todoroki, training nearby, created an ice wall that shattered from the shockwave alone. Could you possibly, Todoroki called out, brushing ice crystals from his hair, use less power? Some of us are trying to concentrate. This is me using less power. Izuku lowered his hands and the avatar dissolved. If I used actual force, we wouldn't have a mountain anymore. That's not reassuring. It wasn't meant to be. Izuku pulled out his magazine. I'm taking a break. This exercise is repetitive. Aizawa appeared from the tree line, looking even more exhausted than usual. Midoriya, you're supposed to be training. I am training. I'm training my patience. Izuku didn't look up from an article about seasonal vegetables. Repeatedly attacking the same location with the same technique isn't training, it's demolition work. Then push yourself harder. Use a more powerful technique. If I use a more powerful technique, this entire area becomes a crater. Is that what you want, Sensei? Because I can do that. I just assumed you wanted the training camp location to remain structurally intact. Aizawa pinched the bridge of his nose. Teaching had never prepared him for a student who was simultaneously perfectly obedient and completely impossible to actually teach. Fine. Help the other students with their training. Now that, Izuku closed his magazine, sounds more interesting. He spent the afternoon rotating through his classmates, offering advice that ranged from genuinely helpful to deliberately obtuse. To Kirishima, your hardening is impressive, but you're thinking about it wrong. You're trying to be an immovable object. Instead, be an object that's too hard to care about being moved. There's a difference. Kirishima stared at him. That's actually kind of profound. Is it? I was just saying words. To Kaminari, your problem is that you overload your own brain, so don't use your brain. Let your body handle the electricity instinctively. That's literally impossible. I have to think to use my quirk. Then get better at thinking, or stop thinking entirely. Either works. To Ashido, your acid is limited by your conscious control. What if you stopped controlling it and just let it happen? That sounds dangerous. Most effective things are. To Bakugo, Izuku said nothing. He simply stood in the blast zone while Bakugo fired explosion after explosion at him, each one washing over his aura like water against stone. Fight back! Bakugo's hands were smoking, his face contorted with frustration. Stop just standing there! Why? This is good training for you. You're learning that some obstacles can't be blown up. Izuku's magazine hadn't even gotten singed. It's an important lesson for a hero. I'll show you an obstacle. Bakugo, breathe. You'll give yourself an aneurysm. Izuku turned a page. Your explosions are getting stronger, though. I actually felt that last one. Slightly. The rage that crossed Bakugo's face was almost incandescent. But beneath it, hidden under layers of fury and pride, was the tiniest spark of satisfaction. Izuku had felt it, even slightly. That was more acknowledgement than he'd gotten in months. That night, the class gathered for dinner, exhausted and sore. Izuku sat with his usual plate of food, eating methodically while reading. Don't you ever put that magazine down? Uraraka asked, her tone more curious than critical. Why would I? It's informative. Izuku showed her the current page. Did you know there's a traditional festival in Kyoto next month? They have a sword dancing competition. I'm considering attending. To compete? To watch. Real sword masters are rare these days. It would be educational. Ida adjusted his glasses. Midoriya, I must say, your approach to training is highly unorthodox, but your advice to our classmates has been surprisingly valuable. Have you considered becoming an instructor after graduation? No. May I ask why not? Teaching requires patience with mediocrity. I don't have that patience. Izuku's tone wasn't cruel, just matter of fact. I can help people improve because it's interesting to see how far they can push themselves, but I couldn't do it as a career. I'd get bored. That's remarkably self-aware, Asui observed. I know what I am. There's no point pretending otherwise. The conversation was interrupted by Kota, a young boy who'd been staying with the Pussycats, walking past their table. He wore an expression of deep contempt that seemed too old for his face. Heroes, he muttered. All the same, showing off, acting like they're special. Izuku glanced up from his magazine. You're not wrong. The class went silent. Kota stopped walking. Most heroes are exactly what you described, Izuku continued, his tone conversational. They show off. They act special. They treat heroism like a performance rather than a function. He closed his magazine, but that doesn't mean strength is worthless. It just means most people use it for the wrong reasons. And what's the right reason? Kota's voice dripped with challenge. Whatever reason doesn't make you insufferable to be around. Izuku stood, collecting his plate. Personally, I like fighting strong opponents. That's my reason. It's honest, at least. Better than pretending to be altruistic while collecting sponsorship deals. He walked away, leaving Kota staring after him with an expression of confused contemplation. The attack came on the third night. Izuku was meditating in his assigned room when he felt it, a distortion in the ambient life energy of the forest. Multiple sources of malice approaching. Strong. Organized. The League of Villains. He opened his eyes, and for the first time in weeks, he smiled. Finally. Something interesting. The forest erupted into chaos. Villains poured from the tree line, their quirks creating havoc. Fire spread through the canopy, the ground split open, poison gas rolled through the clearing, and Nomu. Multiple Nomu, their grotesque forms shambling forward with mindless hunger. Students! Mandalay's telepathic voice echoed in every mind. We're under attack. Get to the facility. Class rep, organize an evacuation. Her instructions cut off as a Nomu's hand wrapped around her throat. Izuku walked out of the building, hands in his pockets, magazine tucked under his arm. Well, he said to no one in particular, this is unexpected. A Nomu turned its attention to him. Empty eyes, exposed brain, muscles that bulged with unnatural enhancement. It charged with the kind of speed that would have pulverized a normal student. Izuku didn't move. The Nomu's fist connected with his chest. The impact should have sent him flying. Instead, Izuku stood perfectly still. The Nomu's hand stopped cold against his aura. Izuku looked down at the Nomu's trembling fist. You're stronger than the training beasts. Not by much, but stronger. He flicked his finger. The Nomu's arm exploded from the shoulder down, torn apart by a casual release of energy. The creature stumbled back, its regeneration already working to rebuild the limb. Oh, you regenerate. That's more interesting. Izuku's smile widened. Let's see how fast. What followed was less a fight and more a systematic vivisection. Izuku moved through the Nomu horde like a surgeon with infinite patience, testing their limits. How much damage could they take? How fast did they heal? What happened if he destroyed their brains but left their bodies intact? Each experiment was conducted with clinical precision and obvious enjoyment. First hand, an arm removed. Second hand, a leg obliterated. Third hand, the torso split open. The Nomu kept regenerating, kept attacking, kept giving him data. Around him, the forest burned. Students fought for their lives against villains who'd come to kill. Teachers struggled to protect their charges. Izuku barely noticed. He was too focused on his research. Fascinating, he murmured, watching a Nomu regrow its head. The regeneration is impressive, but it's not instant. There's a delay of approximately 2.3 seconds for major damage, and you're getting slower each time. Eventually, you'll burn out. He proved his hypothesis by systematically destroying the same Nomu 17 times in a row. By the 18th destruction, it stopped moving, its regeneration exhausted. Theory confirmed. Izuku stepped over the smoking corpse. Now, where are the actually strong ones? As if in answer, a massive figure emerged from the burning forest. Muscular. He was exactly what his name suggested, a mountain of enhanced muscle wrapped around a core of pure aggression. His left eye was covered, but his right gleamed with manic excitement. Well. Muscular's voice was a booming laugh. They said UA had a strong one. You must be the kid who made such a scene at the sports festival. Izuku stopped walking. For the first time that night, his full attention focused on a single target. You're different from the Nomu, he observed. You're actually strong. I can feel it. Damn right I'm strong. Muscular's muscles bulged, layering over themselves in grotesque enhancement. I'm the strongest, and I'm going to prove it by crushing your skull. He lunged forward with speed that belied his size. His fist, wrapped in layers of enhanced muscle, came down like a meteor. Izuku caught it. The impact created a shockwave that leveled trees in a 50-meter radius. The ground beneath Izuku's feet cracked and cratered. Dust and debris filled the air. When it cleared, Izuku stood perfectly still. Muscular's fist caught in his hand. Yes, Izuku breathed, and his eyes lit up with genuine excitement. Yes, you're actually strong. This is going to be fun. Muscular grinned, then swung with his other fist. Izuku blocked it. Another punch. Another block. They traded blows at speeds that created sonic booms, each impact shaking the mountain. For the first time since arriving at UA, Izuku was actually trying. Not much. Perhaps 60% of his true capability, but that was more than he'd used against anyone except All Might. Finally! Muscular roared, his muscles bulging larger with each exchange. A real fight. Show me more. Show me your limit. If you insist. Izuku's hands came together in prayer position. 20th hand. The golden avatar materialized, 20 arms spreading like a divine fan, each one radiating power that made the air shimmer. Yeah! Muscular's entire body swelled, muscles layering over muscles until he was more mass than man. Come on! The 20 hands struck simultaneously. Muscular met them with his own enhanced strength, his muscles absorbing and redirecting the impact. They were matched, perfectly, impossibly matched, for exactly 3 seconds. Then Izuku smiled. 30th hand. 10 more arms materialized. The pressure doubled. Muscular's eyes widened as he was driven back, his feet carving trenches in the earth. What the? How much stronger can you get? Do you really want to know? Izuku's voice held genuine curiosity. Most people can't handle the answer. Show me everything. No. Izuku's avatar pressed forward, 30 hands hammering Muscular from every angle. Starved, if I showed you everything, you'd die instantly. Where's the fun in that? This way you get to actually fight. Isn't that what you wanted? Muscular laughed, actually laughed, even as Izuku's attacks drove him further back. You're crazy. I love it. I'm not crazy. I'm just honest about what I enjoy. Another barrage. You like fighting, I like fighting. The difference is I'm better at it. The battle raged for 5 minutes. 5 minutes of pure, exhilarating combat where Izuku finally got to use real power against an opponent who could take it. When it ended, Muscular lay in a crater, his muscles finally depleted, his body broken, but his spirit oddly satisfied. That was amazing, he wheezed. You're a monster, just like me. No. Izuku looked down at him, and his expression was oddly serious. I'm nothing like you. You fight because you're empty inside. I fight because I'm full of strength that needs release. There's a difference. He turned away, leaving Muscular for the heroes to collect. The rest of the League's forces had scattered. The Nomu were destroyed. The forest was a smoking ruin. And Izuku still hadn't found anyone who truly challenged him. He was about to return to checking on the students when he felt it, a presence nearby, watching Bakugo. Malicious intent. A villain made of smoke and mist materialized near the explosive student, along with another figure, Compress, a magician-themed villain whose quirk allowed him to compress objects and people into marbles. The explosive one, Compress said smoothly. Perfect for our purposes. Izuku appeared between them and Bakugo in an instant. No, he said simply. Compress reacted immediately, his hand shooting out toward Izuku. His quirk activated, or tried to. The compression effect touched Izuku's aura and simply stopped, like trying to compress solid steel with bare hands. Interesting quirk, Izuku observed. It works on the principle of spatial compression, doesn't it? Reducing three-dimensional objects into compressed matter. Clever. How are you? Compress stumbled back, but it requires you to actually affect the target. My aura prevents external manipulation of my body or energy. Izuku tilted his head. Did you really think you could compress me like a common object? Deku! Bakugo's voice was sharp. What's going on? They came for you. Wanted to kidnap you. Izuku didn't look away from the villains. I'm preventing that. The smoke villain, Kurogiri, opened a warp gate. We should retreat. The mission is compromised. Agreed, Compress said quickly. This one is beyond our... Wait! A new voice, Spinner, a lizard-like villain, emerged from the smoke. We can't just leave. We came here for a reason. And the reason, Izuku said quietly, is about to kill you if you don't take your friend's advice. His aura flared, just a pulse, just a momentary release of killing intent. But it was enough. Spinner went pale. Compress stepped back. Even Kurogiri's portal wavered. You're right to be afraid, Izuku continued, his voice conversational but his eyes cold. Because if you try to harm any of these students, I won't capture you. I won't hold back. I'll erase you from existence so thoroughly that even your names will be forgotten. You're just a student, Spinner's voice cracked. You can't. Can't what? Kill you? Izuku's smile was gentle and absolutely terrifying. I absolutely can. And unlike heroes who hesitate, who worry about morality and justice, I have no such compunctions. You're villains. You came here to hurt children. If I killed you right now, it would be a service to society. Compress grabbed Spinner. We're leaving. Now. They vanished through Kurogiri's portal, leaving only smoke and the lingering smell of fear. Bakugo stared at Izuku. You would have actually killed them. Yes. Just like that? They came to kidnap you, to hurt students who can't defend themselves against opponents of that caliber. What did you expect me to do? Invite them to tea? Izuku's magazine reappeared in his hand. Sometimes the answer to a problem is overwhelming violence. These were one of those times. You're insane. No, I'm just practical. Izuku walked away, already reading an article about tea ceremonies. And you're welcome, by the way, for saving your life. Behind him, Bakugo stood silent, a complicated expression on his face. The aftermath of the training camp attack was messy. Teachers were injured, students were traumatized, the forest was destroyed, but no students had been killed or kidnapped, which, by Hero Society standards, made it a qualified success. The media circus was less kind. UA attacked again, the headlines screamed. Students in danger, where was the security? What they didn't report, what was carefully kept quiet, was the extent of Izuku's involvement. The bodies of multiple Nomu, the crater where Muscular had been defeated, the testimonies from villains who'd been captured about the monster in students' clothing. Nedzu sat in his office, paws steepled, reviewing the damage reports. Midoriya eliminated 7 Nomu, defeated Muscular, who had killed 17 pro-heroes in previous encounters, and drove off the League's extraction team single-handedly. He looked up at Aizawa. Should I be concerned? You're always concerned. That's your default state. Aizawa slumped in his chair. But yes, he's getting more comfortable using his power in public, and the way he threatened those villains, that wasn't a hero's response. It was an effective response. Effectiveness isn't the issue. Heroes don't threaten to erase people from existence. Don't they? Nedzu's smile was sharp. What do you think All Might did to All for One? He erased him from the public consciousness so thoroughly that most people think he's a myth. The difference is packaging. All Might didn't enjoy it. No. But Midoriya doesn't enjoy the threat. He enjoys the fight. The threat was purely practical, a way to end the confrontation without violence. Nezu pulled up security footage showing Izuku's face during the encounter. See? No excitement, no anticipation, just cold calculation. He was telling them the truth. Fight, and I'll kill you. Leave, and you live. They chose correctly. Aizawa was quiet for a long moment. He's going to kill someone eventually, not in self-defense, not in protection of others. He'll find someone strong enough to be interesting, and he'll push too far. Perhaps, Nezu closed the footage, or perhaps he'll find what he's actually looking for. Which is, I haven't decided yet, but it's not just strength. If it were, he'd have left Japan by now to seek out the world's strongest fighters. The principal's eyes gleamed with thought. No, there's something else. Some criteria he hasn't articulated even to himself. And when he finds it, things will become very interesting indeed. The provisional license exam came during a tense period. Hero Society was on edge after the training camp attack. Students were nervous, knowing that their performance would be scrutinized by a public already questioning UA's safety. Izuku arrived at the exam venue with his magazine and an expression of profound disinterest. The exam was held in a massive testing facility that simulated urban disaster scenarios. Hundreds of students from hero schools across Japan gathered, each one hoping to earn their provisional license. Welcome. The proctor, a cheerful woman named Mara, who looked like she hadn't slept in days, addressed the crowd. The provisional license exam tests your ability to perform rescue operations while under pressure. You'll face staged disasters, civilian actors, and environmental hazards. Your goal is to rescue as many people as possible while maintaining professionalism and... Excuse me. Izuku raised his hand. Is there a combat component? Mara blinked. The exam focuses on rescue operations, not. So that's a no. Well, technically, if you're attacked by... Thank you. Izuku opened his magazine. The other examinees stared, some with confusion, others with recognition. They'd seen the sports festival. One student in particular approached with aggressive confidence. Inasa Yorashi from Shiketsu High, a school that rivaled UA in prestige. He was tall, muscular, and radiated intense energy. You! Inasa pointed at Izuku with volcanic enthusiasm. You're the one from UA's sports festival, the one with the overwhelming power. I've been hoping to meet you. Izuku glanced up from an article about coffee preparation. Have you? Yes. Your strength is incredible. I want to test myself against you, to see how my passion compares to your power. It doesn't. What? Your passion doesn't compare to my power. Izuku turned a page. Nothing you have compares to what I have. This isn't arrogance. It's just reality. So there's no point in testing yourself against me. You'll lose. Badly. In a way that's not even interesting for me to watch. Inasa's smile faltered. You haven't even seen what I can do. I don't need to. I can read your power level from your aura. You're strong, probably the strongest student here besides me. But strong for a student and actually strong are different categories. You're the former, I'm the latter. Then prove it. Inasa's quirk activated, wind swirling around him. Show me this overwhelming difference. Izuku sighed and closed his magazine. Fine, if it'll get you to leave me alone. He stood, walked 3 steps forward, and released exactly 1% of his aura. The pressure that emanated from him was like standing at the bottom of the ocean. Invisible, inescapable, crushing. Inasa's wind died. His knees buckled. Students in a 20-meter radius stumbled, gasping, as if the air itself had become heavier. This, Izuku said calmly, is 1%. If I release my full power, you wouldn't be able to stand. Your body would shut down in self-preservation. Your mind would break trying to comprehend the difference. He retracted his aura. Still want to test yourself? Inasa was pale, shaking, but his eyes burned with something between fear and exhilaration. That was incredible. It was a warning. Izuku returned to his seat. Don't challenge people when you're not ready to handle the answer. The exam began. Izuku completed each objective with the minimum required effort. Rescue civilians? He pulled them from rubble one-handed while reading about seasonal produce. Handle environmental hazards? He walked through a burning building that couldn't actually burn him, his aura protecting him from heat and smoke. Provide first aid? He'd memorized medical procedures for exactly this purpose. They were interesting in a theoretical way. Between objectives, he read his magazine. target. Target on your left, he said to Todoroki during one scenario, not looking up from an article about traditional pottery. How did you... I can sense living things in a 100-meter radius. There's an examiner hiding behind that wall, waiting to see if you notice. Go handle it. You could handle it faster. But then you wouldn't learn anything. Go. By the end of the exam, Izuku had the second highest score. Not because he'd struggled, but because he deliberately stopped completing objectives once he'd reached the minimum passing threshold. Why didn't you try for first place? Uraraka asked afterward. Because first place means attention, and attention means interviews, and interviews are boring. Izuku accepted his provisional license with the air of someone receiving junk mail. I got what I came for, legal authorization to engage villains in combat. Everything else is irrelevant. You're impossible, she said, but she was smiling. No, I'm practical. There's a difference. The license itself was anticlimactic. A card with his photo and hero name, he'd chosen Bodhisattva because it was accurate and would annoy people who understood the reference. Legal authorization to use his quirk in public for heroic purposes. What it really meant, he could now fight strong villains without technically breaking the law. Finally, things were getting interesting. The call came 2 weeks later. Izuku was in his dorm room reading about mountain monasteries in Tibet when his phone rang. Unknown number. Midoriya? The voice was professional. Clipped. Hero commission. We have a situation that requires your unique capabilities. Are you available for a joint operation? Depends. Is it interesting? A pause. We're raiding the Shi Haseikai, Yakuza organization with a leader who possesses a powerful quirk. Intelligence suggests they're developing a quirk-destroying drug. Quirk-destroying drug. That was interesting. Not for himself, his power wasn't a quirk, but the implications were fascinating. What do you need me for? The leader, Overhaul, is considered extremely dangerous. We're assembling a team of pro heroes, but given your performance at the training camp, we believe you could be an asset. I'll participate. When? Tomorrow morning. Report to Sir Night Eye's agency for briefing. The call ended. Izuku set down his phone and returned to his magazine, but his mind was elsewhere. Overhaul. A villain with the power to destroy and rebuild matter. That suggested matter manipulation at a fundamental level. Could it affect his aura? Could it reconstruct him if he allowed himself to be deconstructed? The questions alone made the mission worthwhile. Sir Night Eye's agency was exactly what Izuku expected from All Might's former sidekick. Efficient, organized, and decorated with All Might merchandise that bordered on obsessive. The man himself was tall, angular, and possessed eyes that seemed to dissect everything they observed. Midoriya. Night Eye's greeting was cool. Your reputation precedes you. Most reputations do. That's how reputations work. A muscle in Night Eye's jaw twitched. I've reviewed the footage from your sports festival matches and the training camp incident. Your power is considerable. Yes. I'm concerned about your attitude toward heroism. Most people are. Izuku accepted a briefing packet. Is this going to be a lecture, or can we discuss the actual mission? The mission is a raid on the Shi Haseikai compound. Multiple floors, heavily defended, with civilians in the area. We go in fast, extract any hostages, and neutralize Overhaul before he can use his quirk to destroy the building, or worse. Hostages. That was new information. Unconfirmed, but likely. The Haseikai are traditional Yakuza. They'll have leverage. Night Eye's expression darkened. We also have reason to believe they're experimenting on someone. Possibly a child. Something in Izuku's posture shifted. A child. The details are unclear, but yes, which is why this mission is critical. Night Eye studied him. I need to know you'll follow orders, that you won't go off independently. I'll follow orders that make sense. If your orders put that child at risk, I'll ignore them. Izuku met his gaze without hesitation. Choose your priorities accordingly. For a long moment, they stared at each other. Finally, Night Eye nodded. Fair enough. Brief the others on their roles. We move at dawn. The team assembled the next morning. Multiple pro heroes, including Fat Gum, Eraserhead, and several others. Also present were Kirishima and Amajiki, students assigned to hero studies. Izuku noted their presence with mild interest. Kirishima was durable enough to survive most attacks. Amajiki was more fragile but versatile. They'd be useful as long as they stayed out of his way. The plan, Night Eye explained, pointing to a building schematic, is a simultaneous multi-level breach. Team Alpha enters from above, Team Beta from below, and Team Gamma, that's us, through the front. We advance room by room, securing each floor. That's slow, Izuku observed. It's thorough. It's slow and gives them time to destroy evidence or hurt hostages. A better plan, I go in first, eliminate resistance, and secure the child. Then you can follow behind and handle the cleanup. Absolutely not. This is a coordinated operation, not a one-man show. Then your coordinated operation better move faster than Overhaul can kill a hostage. Izuku's tone was perfectly calm, because if I sense that child dying while we're being thorough, I'm going in regardless of your plan. Make your peace with that now. Aizawa stepped forward. He's not bluffing. If you want his cooperation, account for his nature. Give him a specific role that lets him be useful without undermining the entire operation. Night Eye's jaw clenched, but he was practical enough to adapt. Fine, your point position. You engage and distract Overhaul while we secure the perimeter and evacuate civilians. Can you do that without destroying the entire building? Probably. That's not reassuring. It's the best you'll get. The raid began at dawn. The Shi Hasekai compound was a traditional Yakuza building. Multiple floors, ornate decoration hiding practical defensibility. Armed guards at every entrance. Underground tunnels for escape, none of it mattered. Izuku walked through the front entrance like he owned it. Guards raised weapons. He didn't slow down. First hand. The doors exploded inward. Guards flew backward, unconscious before they hit the ground. Izuku stepped over them, hands in his pockets, magazine tucked under his arm. Behind him, the hero teams poured in, but he was already 3 rooms ahead, clearing a path with casual efficiency. Intruders! The alarm blared. Yakuza members rushed to defend their territory. Izuku walked through them like they were made of paper. A thug with a strength enhancement quirk charged him. Izuku sidestepped, tapped him on the shoulder, and the man crumpled as his nervous system overloaded from a precise aura strike, another with a blade borer. Quirk slashed at him. The blade shattered against his passive defenses. Izuku didn't even look up from his magazine. "This is disappointing," he said to no one. "I was hoping for actual security." He moved deeper into the compound, following the faint trail of distress he could sense, a presence weak, terrified, in pain. The child, the trail led downward, underground, past layers of security that meant nothing to someone who could simply walk through walls if he wanted to. He didn't want to. That would be showing off. Instead, he followed the stairs down into a basement that reeked of antiseptic and suffering. The door at the bottom was reinforced steel. Izuku placed his palm against it. 10th hand. The door and the wall it was set in ceased to exist. Beyond was a laboratory, medical equipment, restraints, syringes, and in the center, in a chair that was more prison than furniture, was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. White hair, red eyes, a horn protruding from her forehead. Her arms were covered in bandages that didn't quite hide the scars beneath. She looked up at Izuku with eyes that had forgotten how to hope. "Please," she whispered, "don't hurt me anymore." Izuku stopped moving. For the first time in his life at UA, his magazine fell from his hands. "Who did this to you?" His voice was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that preceded earthquakes. "Overhaul. He needs my blood. For the drug." Her voice was mechanical, rehearsed through repetition. "He takes me apart and puts me back together. Over and over. It hurts." The temperature in the room dropped. Izuku's aura, normally controlled with perfect precision, flickered. Golden light danced across his skin like barely restrained lightning. "Takes you apart," he repeated. "A child. He experiments on a child." "I'm sorry," Eri said, and she was crying now. "I'm sorry I'm not stronger. I'm sorry I can't help. I'm sorry I'm—" "Stop." Izuku knelt in front of her, moving slowly so as not to frighten her. "You have nothing to apologize for. Nothing that happened to you is your fault." She stared at him, confused. "What's your name?" His voice was gentle now, a tone his classmates had never heard. "Eri. Eri. I'm Izuku." He reached out slowly, carefully, and when she didn't flinch, he touched the restraints. They fell apart at his touch, reduced to their component atoms. "No one is ever going to hurt you again, I promise." "You can't promise that. Overhaul will—" "Overhaul," Izuku said, and his eyes were cold, "is going to suffer, considerably." Footsteps echoed from above. Heavy, confident. Well, a voice called down. An intruder in my laboratory. How? Unfortunate. Overhaul descended the stairs. He was tall, lean, wearing a plague doctor's mask and white gloves. Everything about him screamed obsessive cleanliness, a germaphobe of the highest order. Step away from the girl, Overhaul said, his tone bored. She's crucial to my work. I can't have you contaminating. He stopped talking when he saw Izuku's face. You experimented on her, Izuku said. Each word was pronounced with perfect clarity. A child, you took her apart, put her back together, used her blood to make weapons. For years. The girl is a tool, a means to an end. Overhaul adjusted his gloves. Her quirk is unique, necessary for my plans. Whatever bleeding heart nonsense you're about to spout, save it. In the pursuit of greatness, sacrifices must be. He didn't get to finish. Izuku didn't pray, didn't announce his attack, didn't give any warning. He simply moved. One moment he was kneeling by Eri. The next, his hand was through Overhaul's chest, not killing him, not yet. Just pinning him to the wall with fingers that had pierced through his shoulder, shattering bone and tendon, ensuring he couldn't use his quirk. I'm going to hurt you, Izuku said, and his voice was empty of emotion. I'm going to make you suffer in ways you can't imagine. And when you beg me to stop, when you plead for mercy, I'm going to remember every scar on that little girl's arms, and I'm going to hurt you more. Overhaul's eyes widened. He tried to activate his quirk, to deconstruct Izuku's arm, but his power slid off the golden aura like water off glass. Your quirk doesn't work on me, Izuku continued, because I'm not made of matter you can manipulate. I'm made of concentrated life energy that exceeds your ability to affect. You might as well try to deconstruct the sun. He pulled his hand free, letting Overhaul collapse. Then he stomped on the man's right arm, the one he used for his quirk. Bones shattered. Overhaul screamed. That's for the first time you hurt her. Another stomp. The left arm. That's for the second time. Overhaul tried to crawl away. Izuku broke his legs. You're not going anywhere. We have years of pain to work through. Wait. Overhaul gasped. You don't understand the quirk-destroying drug? It could save society from... I don't care about your justification. Izuku's foot came down on Overhaul's hands, grinding them into the floor. You hurt a child. Repeatedly. Systematically. For your own ambition. There is no philosophy, no goal, no dream that justifies that. He reached down and touched Overhaul's face, and his aura invaded the man's body. Not killing. Worse, Overhaul felt his quirk factor dying, felt the fundamental source of his power being erased at a cellular level. I'm taking your quirk, Izuku said. Not with a drug, not temporarily, forever. So you can never hurt anyone ever again. No, that's everything. It's not everything. You'll still have your life, your memories, your knowledge that you had power and lost it. Izuku stood. That's a mercy you don't deserve, but I'm giving it to you anyway, because death would be too quick. He turned back to Eri, who was watching with wide eyes. Close your eyes, he said gently. You don't need to see this. She did. What followed was systematic, professional, and absolutely brutal. By the time the other heroes arrived, Overhaul was alive but would never walk again, never use his hands again, never use his quirk again. He was a broken shell of a man, whimpering in a pool of his own blood tears. Izuku stood over him, not a drop of blood on his clothes, holding Eri in his arms. The threat is neutralized, he said calmly as Night Eye and the others rushed in. The child is safe. The quirk-destroying drug production is halted. You can handle the cleanup. Night Eye stared at Overhaul's broken form. What did you... I did what was necessary. Izuku's eyes were cold. He hurt a child repeatedly for years. This is proportional response. This is excessive force. This is exactly what he deserved. Izuku walked past him, still carrying Eri. If you have a problem with my methods, file a complaint. I'll ignore it. Aizawa stopped him at the stairs. Midoriya. Yes, sensei? The girl. You can't just take her. Just watch me. She needs medical attention, professional care, a proper environment for... She needs safety. She needs to know she's protected. She needs someone who will kill anyone who tries to hurt her again. Izuku's grip on Eri tightened gently. I can provide that. You're 17 years old. You're a student. You can't what? Care about someone? Protect someone? Be responsible for someone weaker than myself? Izuku's voice dropped. I've spent my entire life at UA proving I'm stronger than everyone around me. Let me prove I can be gentle too. They stared at each other. Finally, Aizawa sighed. UA will handle the legal arrangements. She'll stay in the dorms under supervision, but you're responsible for her well-being. Understand? Completely. As Izuku carried Eri up the stairs, away from the laboratory that had been her prison, she spoke for the first time since he'd picked her up. Why did you save me? Because you needed saving. Izuku's answer was simple. Because you were hurting, and I could stop it. Because even someone like me draws the line at hurting children. Someone like you? Someone who cares more about fighting strong opponents than being a traditional hero. Someone who isn't particularly nice or moral or heroic most of the time. He paused. But even I have standards, and hurting defenseless children violates all of them. Eri was quiet for a moment. Then, thank you. You don't need to thank me. You don't owe me anything. Izuku stepped out into the sunlight, and Eri flinched from its brightness. How long had she been underground? From now on, you're safe. That's not a transaction. That's just reality. Behind them, in the darkness of the Shi Hasaikai compound, Overhaul screamed and screamed and screamed. No one came to help him. Eri's integration into UA was complicated. Legally, she was a ward of the state, placed under UA's protection due to the school's security and the presence of multiple pro-heroes. Practically, she was Izuku's responsibility, living in a special room in the dorms with 24/7 supervision. The class's reaction was mixed. You brought home a child. Ida's hands chopped the air with excessive emphasis. This is highly irregular. There are procedures, protocols. I followed the procedures. Nedzu signed off on everything. Izuku was feeding Eri apple slices, cutting them into perfect pieces. She's staying. Get used to it. Midoriya, Yaoyorozu said gently, we're not questioning your intentions, but taking care of a traumatized child is a serious responsibility. I'm aware. Are you? Because you spend most of your time reading magazines and fighting. Children need attention, care, emotional support, which I'm providing. Izuku offered Eri another apple slice. She took it hesitantly, still unused to casual kindness. I'm capable of multitasking. And he was. The class watched in fascination as Izuku's entire demeanor changed around Eri. The trolling stopped. The casual arrogance vanished. He was patient, gentle, attentive in ways that contradicted everything they knew about him. He helped her with nightmares, sitting by her bed until she fell back asleep. He cooked her meals, researching nutrition for traumatized children. He read to her, not his magazines, but actual children's books, his voice soft and steady. I didn't think he had it in him, Uraraka whispered to Asui one evening, watching Izuku help Eri with a coloring book. Everyone has depths, Asui replied. We just don't always see them. Bakugo's reaction was different. Why? He demanded one day, cornering Izuku in the common room. Why do you care about her? Because she needed someone to care. Izuku didn't look up from the puzzle he was assembling with Eri. Why does that confuse you? Because you don't care about anything. You don't care about heroism or justice or... I care about what I care about. I don't need to justify my priorities to you. Izuku placed another puzzle piece. Eri was hurt by someone stronger than her, someone who used power to cause suffering. That's different from fighting strong opponents. That's just cruelty. So you do have a moral code. I have a sense of what's acceptable and what isn't. Hurting children for personal gain isn't acceptable. He glanced at Bakugo. Is that really so surprising? Bakugo was silent for a long moment. Then, no. I guess not. The cultural festival arrived like a breath of fresh air after the darkness of the Shi Hasaikai raid. The school transformed into a celebration of youth and normalcy. Food stalls, performances, games. For once, everyone could pretend they were just regular students at a regular school. Class 1A decided on a live music performance. Bakugo on drums, Jiro on guitar, others providing vocals and instrumentation. It was chaotic, loud, and enthusiastically amateurish. Izuku didn't participate in the performance. Instead, he managed security, a role no one questioned after his track record heard he also brought Eri. A festival? She looked around with wide eyes, overwhelmed by the colors and noise and sheer energy of it all. A celebration, Izuku explained, keeping her hand in his as they walked through the stalls. People gathering to have fun. No fighting, no pain, just enjoyment. I've never been to something like this. Then we'll make it memorable. They visited every stall, tried every food, played every game. Izuku won her a stuffed apple at a ring toss. He used precisely calibrated aura control to ensure the ring landed perfectly. which was technically cheating, but he didn't care. Eri laughed. It was a small sound, hesitant and rusty from disuse, but it was real. Izuku smiled, a genuine smile, not the troll's grin or the warrior's anticipation. Just happiness. What's funny? Eri asked. Nothing. I just realized I haven't heard you laugh before. He adjusted the stuffed apple in her arms. It's a good sound. The festival was interrupted, inevitably, by a villain attack. Gentle Criminal, a theatrical villain who committed crimes for internet fame, appeared with his partner La Brava. They intended to infiltrate UA and broadcast their presence to the world. Not to hurt anyone, just to prove they could bypass the school's security. Izuku sensed them immediately. Eri, stay with Aizawa-sensei. He was already moving, his casual demeanor replaced by focused intensity. I'll be right back. Where are you going? To handle a problem. It won't take long. He found Gentle and La Brava near the main stage, setting up their recording equipment. Ah! Gentle struck a dramatic pose. A student has discovered us. No matter, we shall leave. Izuku's voice cut through the theatrics. Now, before I make you. Young man, we mean no harm. We're simply making a statement about... I don't care about your statement. There's a little girl at this festival having the first happy day of her life. You're threatening to ruin it. His aura flared, just slightly. Leave, or I'll put you in the hospital. Gentle's quirk allowed him to make air elastic, turning the atmosphere into trampolines and barriers. It was creative, versatile, and completely useless against overwhelming force. He tried anyway. Elastic barriers formed between him and Izuku, complex geometric patterns that should have been impossible to bypass. Izuku walked through them like they were cobwebs. Your quirk is interesting, he observed, casually shattering each barrier with his passive aura, but it's built on the assumption that I can be blocked. I can't. La Brava. Enhancement. La Brava's quirk activated, a love-based enhancement that multiplied Gentle's power by several magnitudes. His barriers became steel strong, his movements blur fast. Izuku caught his punch one-handed. Better, he said. Still not good enough. He didn't hurt them. Didn't need to. He simply held Gentle in place while security arrived, his grip unbreakable despite all the enhanced struggling. Why? Gentle gasped. Why do you care so much about stopping us? We're not even dangerous. Because there's a child at this festival who's never been happy before. Because she's smiling for the first time in years. Because I'm not letting anyone, no matter how harmless their intentions, ruin that for her. Izuku released him to the security team. Your fame isn't more important than her happiness. When he returned to Eri, she was exactly where he'd left her, anxiously watching the crowd. You came back, she said, relief evident. I said I would. Izuku took her hand again, ready to watch the concert. The performance was enthusiastic. Bakugo attacked the drums like they'd personally insulted him. Jiro's guitar work was actually impressive. The vocals were off-key but heartfelt. Eri watched, transfixed. This is music? She asked. This is music played by people who care more about passion than skill. It's not perfect, but it's real. Izuku watched her face, saw the wonder there. Do you like it? Yes, I do. When the performance ended, Eri was smiling. Not just a small smile, a real, genuine, joyful expression that transformed her entire face. Izuku's chest felt tight in a way that had nothing to do with combat or power or strength. Thank you, Eri said quietly. For today. For everything. You don't need to thank me. This is what normal should be. He knelt down to her level. And from now on, normal is what you get. No more pain, no more fear. Just life, however you want to live it. With you, if that's what you want, I'm not going anywhere. She hugged him then, small arms wrapping around his neck, and Izuku realized something profound. Power wasn't just about fighting strong opponents. It was also about protecting moments like this, protecting people who couldn't protect themselves, ensuring that children could smile without fear. He'd spent so long focusing on strength that he'd forgotten what strength was actually for. Not just to dominate, but to shield. The warning came 3 weeks later. All Might appeared at UA looking haggard, his skeletal form more pronounced than usual. He's back, the former #1 hero said. All for one, he's broken out of Tartarus. The room went silent. How? Nedzu's paws were steepled, his expression grave. Unknown, but he's not hiding. He's calling me out, publicly. All Might pulled out his phone, showing a video that had gone viral. In it, All For One stood in a ruined city district, his scarred face turned toward the camera. "Symbol of peace," he said, his voice carrying dark amusement. "You defeated me once, imprisoned me, but you failed to finish what you started. Now I've returned and I'm going to destroy everything you've built. Your society, your students, your legacy." The video ended. "He specifically threatened UA," All Might continued, "mentioned the students by name. This isn't just about revenge against me. He wants to prove that the society I created is fragile, that hope can be extinguished." Izuku had been listening silently. Now he spoke. "Where is he?" "The Kamino district. He's waiting." "This is a trap." "I know it's a trap." Izuku stood. "That's not what I asked. Where is he?" "You're not going." Aizawa's capture weapon was already out. "This is beyond even you. All For One is strong. I know, I can feel his power from here. It's immense, layered, complex." Izuku's eyes gleamed. "He's exactly what I've been waiting for." "This isn't a game." All Might's voice cracked. "He's killed hundreds of pro heroes. He's the greatest villain in history. You can't just... He threatened children. He specifically mentioned UA students." Izuku's tone went flat. "That makes him a target. That makes him someone who needs to be eliminated." "Listen to yourself. You're talking about killing. Yes, I'm gonna kill him." No hesitation. No doubt. "Because unlike you, I understand that some threats can't be imprisoned, can't be reformed. They're too powerful, too dangerous, too committed to causing harm. All For One is one of those threats. We'll handle this properly, with hero teams, coordination. He'll destroy those teams. You know he will. You barely survived fighting him, and you had one for all at full power." Izuku walked toward the door. "I'm going. You can either help or stay out of my way." Nedzu spoke for the first time. "What's your plan?" "Find him, fight him, kill him." Izuku paused at the door. "Permanently this time." "That's not a plan. That's suicide." "For most people, yes, but I'm not most people." He looked back and his expression was colder than anyone had ever seen. He made a mistake. He could have hidden, could have rebuilt in secret, could have become a shadow threat that was impossible to pin down. Instead, he got arrogant. He announced himself. He threatened people under my protection. "Your protection?" Aizawa's voice was sharp. "Eri is at this school. My classmates are at this school. People I've decided matter are at this school." His aura flickered into visibility, gold and overwhelming, and All For One just declared war on all of them. That's not a fight. That's an execution waiting to happen. Before anyone could stop him, he was gone. Kamino District was a wasteland. All For One had destroyed several city blocks just to create a suitable arena, buildings reduced to rubble, streets torn up, civilians evacuated it or fled. It looked like a war zone. In the center of the destruction stood the man himself. All For One was tall, imposing, his face a ruin of scars where All Might had destroyed it years ago. But his power was undeniable. It radiated from him in waves, dozens of stolen quirks layered together into something that transcended normal human capability. "Ah," he said as Izuku approached, "the mysterious student. I've been curious about you." "Have you?" Izuku walked through the rubble without hurrying. "That's unfortunate." "Unfortunate?" "Curiosity would have been better served by ignoring me, by rebuilding your power in secret, by being smart." Izuku stopped 50 meters away. "Instead, you announced yourself, threatened innocence, made yourself a target." All For One laughed. "You think you're a threat to me? A student? I've killed heroes with decades of experience. I've stolen quirks from the strongest fighters in the world. I'm immortal in all the ways that matter. You're also arrogant, and stupidity mixed with arrogance is terminal. Such confidence. Tell me, boy, what's your quirk? What power do you possess that makes you think you can stand against me?" "I don't have a quirk." All For One paused. "Excuse me? I don't have a quirk. What I have is cultivated life energy. Nen, though that's not a term you'd know. Power built through meditation, discipline, and pushing past human limitations." Izuku's hands came together in prayer position. "It's not something you can steal. It's not genetic. It's earned." "Impossible. Everyone has a quirk, or they're quirkless." "Yes, I was born quirkless. Then I got strong anyway." His aura exploded outward, a golden tsunami that made the rubble dance. "And now I'm going to show you what that strength means." All For One's expression shifted from amused condescension to actual concern. "Remarkable," he breathed. That power, it's not from a quirk. I can't sense a quirk factor at all. How? Does it matter? Izuku lowered his hands. You threatened children. You declared war on people who couldn't fight back. That's all I need to know. You care about them? The students at UA? All for One smiled, and it was cruel. How wonderfully heroic, and how disappointing. I'd heard you were different, a warrior who cared only for battle, but you're just another self-righteous child playing hero. I never claimed to be a hero. I claimed to be strong, and I claimed that hurting defenseless people is unacceptable. Izuku's eyes went cold. You're about to learn the difference between those two positions. All for One activated 5 quirks simultaneously. Air cannons blasted forward with force that would have pulverized concrete. Izuku's aura absorbed them like raindrops. Kinetic multiplication made each attack hit with 100 times normal force. Izuku didn't even sway. Rivet. Spikes of hardened matter shot from All for One's hands. They shattered against Izuku's skin. Forced activation. A quirk that should have triggered every ability in Izuku's body simultaneously. It found nothing to activate. Warping. Spatial distortion that should have twisted Izuku's body into impossible configurations. His aura simply refused to be warped. Your quirks, Izuku said calmly, don't work on me, because they're designed to affect physical matter, genetic traits, biological systems. I'm not fighting you with any of those. I'm fighting you with pure force of will. He moved. No technique. No prayer. Just movement faster than All for One could track. His fist drove into All for One's stomach, and the shockwave leveled 3 buildings behind him. All for One gasped, stumbling back. Impossible. My impact recoil should have redirected the force back at me. I know. Izuku hit him again. But my attacks aren't physical force. They're manifestations of life energy. You can't redirect what you can't categorize. Another punch. Another building destroyed by the shockwave. All for One activated regeneration, his body healing from the damage. Then he activated strength enhancement, kinetic multiplication, and defensive hardening simultaneously. He caught Izuku's next punch. There! His grin was manic. I can adapt! I can match you! For about 5 seconds. Izuku's other hand came up in prayer position. Then I stopped holding back. 30th hand. The golden avatar materialized behind him, massive, overwhelming, radiating power that made the air itself scream. 30 hands spread in a perfect array, each one carrying enough force to level a city block. All for One's eyes widened. That's impossible. No human should be able to generate that much. The hands struck. All for One activated every defensive quirk he'd stolen. Force barriers, kinetic absorption, impact redirection, dimensional phasing, hardening, regeneration. It didn't matter. The 30th hand struck through his defenses like they were paper. Each impact drove him deeper into the earth, creating a crater that grew with every strike. You can't, All for One screamed, his composure finally breaking. I've stolen hundreds of quirks, decades of accumulated power. One person cannot. Quantity, Izuku said, and his voice was ice, doesn't beat quality. You've stolen hundreds of abilities. I've mastered one source of power and pushed it to absolute limits. You're a collection. I'm a weapon. Another barrage. The crater was now a canyon. All for One activated his most dangerous quirk, forced quirk activation combined with explosion multiplication. Every stolen quirk in his body activated simultaneously, creating a detonation that should have erased everything in a kilometer radius. Izuku stood in the epicenter, untouched, his aura shielding him from the blast. Is that it? He looked down at All for One, now broken and bleeding in his self-created crater. Is that all the greatest villain in history can manage? Wait. All for One raised a hand. We can talk. I have knowledge, resources, power I can offer. I don't want your offers. I want you dead. You'll regret this. Society needs villains like me to define itself. Without a great evil, heroes lose purpose. Then heroes will find a new purpose. That's not my problem. Izuku's hands came together, and this time his prayer was different, more focused, more absolute. You threatened children, you hurt the innocent, you created suffering for your own entertainment. His aura condensed, pulling inward, compressing into something that made reality itself strain. You're not a warrior, you're not even a villain worth respecting. You're a disease that needs to be cured. Behind him, the golden avatar grew, and grew, and grew. Where the 30th hand had been large, this was colossal. A bodhisattva of pure golden light that towered over the ruins of Kamino. Its form so bright it hurt to look at directly. It had 99 hands. Each hand came together in prayer position, and then they opened, palms facing forward toward All for One. 99th hand, Izuku said quietly. Variant, 0 hand. All for One's last thought was recognition of what was about to happen. All the power Izuku had cultivated, all his life energy, concentrated into a single, overwhelming attack, not spread across 99 strikes, but combined into one attack so powerful it transcended physics. Light gathered in the Bodhisattva's palms. Golden, brilliant, absolute. Wait. All for One started. The beam fired. It was beautiful, in the way that tsunamis and volcanoes and supernovas were beautiful. Terrible and awesome and utterly devastating. The concentrated life energy carved through the air in a column of golden light that could be seen from space. It struck All for One not as force but as pure erasure. Every molecule of his body, every stolen quirk, every piece of his existence simply ceased to be. No explosion. No dramatic destruction. Just nothing. Where All for One had been, there was now only a smooth channel of glassed earth extending for 3 kilometers in a perfectly straight line. No body, no remains, not even ashes. Complete obliteration. Izuku lowered his hands, breathing hard. For the first time since arriving at UA, he was actually tired. The 0-hand technique used all of his cultivated life energy in a single attack. It would take hours to fully recover, but it was worth it. All for One was gone. Not defeated, not imprisoned. Gone. Erased from existence so thoroughly that even the memory of his presence was questionable. Behind him, he sensed arrivals. Heroes drawn by the massive discharge of power. All Might among them, his face shocked beyond words. What? All Might stared at the channel of destroyed Earth. What did you do? I eliminated a threat. Izuku turned, and his exhaustion was evident. All for One threatened to hurt students, threatened to destroy Hero Society, threatened to kill you and everyone you cared about. He met All Might's eyes. So I erased him. Completely. He's not coming back. Ever. You killed him. Yes. You're 17 years old and you just killed the most dangerous villain in history. Yes. Izuku's voice was steady, and I'd do it again because he wasn't going to stop. He was immortal, or close enough. He'd keep coming back, keep hurting people, keep threatening society. The only solution was permanent removal. That's not, heroes don't kill. I never claimed to be a hero. I claimed to be strong, and I claimed that hurting defenseless people is unacceptable. Izuku's eyes went cold. You're about to learn the difference between those two positions. All for One activated 5 quirks simultaneously. Air cannons blasted forward with force that would have pulverized concrete. Izuku's aura absorbed them like raindrops. Kinetic multiplication made each attack hit with 100 times normal force. Izuku didn't even sway. Rivet, spikes of hardened matter shot from All for One's hands. They shattered against Izuku's skin. Forced activation, a quirk that should have triggered every ability in Izuku's body simultaneously. It found nothing to activate. Warping, spatial distortion that should have twisted Izuku's body into impossible configurations. His aura simply refused to be warped. Your quirks, Izuku said calmly, don't work on me because they're designed to affect physical matter, genetic traits, biological systems. I'm not fighting you with any of those. I'm fighting you with pure force of will. He moved. No technique, no prayer. Just movement faster than All for One could track. His fist drove into All for One's stomach, and the shockwave leveled 3 buildings behind him. All for One gasped, stumbling back. Impossible. My impact recoil should have redirected the force back at me. I know. Izuku hit him again. But my attacks aren't physical force. They're manifestations of life energy. You can't redirect what you can't categorize. Another punch. Another building destroyed by the shockwave. All for One activated regeneration, his body healing from the damage. Then he activated strength enhancement, kinetic multiplication, and defensive hardening simultaneously. He caught Izuku's next punch. There! His grin was manic. I can adapt! I can match you! For about 5 seconds. Izuku's other hand came up in prayer position. Then I stopped holding back. 30th hand. The golden avatar materialized behind him. Massive, overwhelming, radiating power that made the air itself scream. 30 hands spread in a perfect array, each one carrying enough force to level a city block. All for One's eyes widened. That's impossible. No human should be able to generate that much. The hands struck. All for One activated every defensive quirk he'd stolen. Force barriers, kinetic absorption, impact redirection, dimensional phasing, hardening, regeneration. It didn't matter. The 30th hand struck through his defenses like they were paper. Each impact drove him deeper into the earth, creating a crater that grew with every strike. "You can't!" All for One screamed, his composure finally breaking. "I've stolen hundreds of quirks, decades of accumulated power. One person cannot." "Quantity," Izuku said, and his voice was ice, "doesn't beat quality. You've stolen hundreds of abilities. I've mastered one source of power and pushed it to absolute limits. You're a collection. I'm a weapon." Another barrage. The crater was now a canyon. All for One activated his most dangerous quirk, forced quirk activation combined with explosion multiplication. Every stolen quirk in his body activated simultaneously, creating a detonation that should have erased everything in a kilometer radius. Izuku stood in the epicenter, untouched, his aura shielding him from the blast. "Is that it?" He looked down at All for One, now broken and bleeding in his self-created crater. "Is that all the greatest villain in history can manage?" "Wait." All for One raised a hand. "We can talk. I have knowledge, resources, power I can offer. I don't want your offers. I want you dead. You'll regret this. Society needs villains like me to define itself. Without a great evil, heroes lose purpose. Then heroes will find a new purpose. That's not my problem." Izuku's hands came together, and this time his prayer was different. More focused, more absolute. "You threatened children, you hurt the innocent, you created suffering for your own entertainment." His aura condensed, pulling inward, compressing into something that made reality itself strain. "You're not a warrior. You're not even a villain worth respecting. You're a disease that needs to be cured." Behind him, the golden avatar grew, and grew, and grew. Where the 30th hand had been large, this was colossal. A bodhisattva of pure golden light that towered over the ruins of Camino, its form so bright it hurt to look at directly. It had 99 hands. Each hand came together in prayer position, and then they opened, palms facing forward, toward All for One. 99th hand, Izuku said quietly. Variant, 0 hand. All for One's last thought was recognition of what was about to happen. All the power Izuku had cultivated, all his life energy, concentrated into a single, overwhelming attack. Not spread across 99 strikes, but combined into one attack so powerful it transcended physics. Light gathered in the Bodhisattva's palms. Golden, brilliant, absolute. Wait. All for One started. The beam fired. It was beautiful. In the way that tsunamis and volcanoes and supernovas were beautiful. Terrible and awesome and utterly devastating. The concentrated life energy carved through the air in a column of golden light that could be seen from space. It struck All for One not as force but as pure erasure. Every molecule of his body, every stolen quirk, every piece of his existence simply ceased to be. No explosion, no dramatic destruction, just nothing. Where All for One had been, there was now only a smooth channel of glassed earth extending for 3 kilometers in a perfectly straight line. No body, no remains, not even ashes, complete obliteration. Izuku lowered his hands, breathing hard. For the first time since arriving at UA, he was actually tired. The zero-hand technique used all of his cultivated life energy in a single attack. It would take hours to fully recover, but it was worth it. All for One was gone, not defeated, not imprisoned. Gone, erased from existence so thoroughly that even the memory of his presence was questionable. Behind him, he sensed arrivals, heroes, drawn by the massive discharge of power. All Might among them, his face shocked beyond words. "What?" All Might stared at the channel of destroyed Earth. "What did you do?" "I eliminated a threat." Izuku turned, and his exhaustion was evident. All for One threatened to hurt students, threatened to destroy hero society, threatened to kill you and everyone you cared about. He met All Might's eyes, so I erased him completely. He's not coming back, ever. You killed him. Yes, you're 17 years old and you just killed the most dangerous villain in history. Yes. Izuku's voice was steady. And I'd do it again, because he wasn't going to stop. He was immortal or close enough. He'd keep coming back, keep hurting people, keep threatening society, and the only solution was permanent removal. Heroes don't kill. I never claimed to be a hero. I claimed to be strong. Izuku started walking toward the gathered heroes. But I also claimed that hurting defenseless people was unacceptable. All for One did both, so I removed him from the equation. Aizawa stepped forward. You used everything. That attack, you put all your power into it. The zero-hand technique, complete expenditure of life energy into a single attack. Izuku nodded. It's my ultimate move, reserved for threats that need to be absolutely unquestionably eliminated. And All for One qualified? He threatened children, Sensei. Of course he qualified. The heroes stood in silence, staring at the student who just accomplished what entire generations of pro-heroes had failed to do. Nedzu was the one who finally spoke, appearing from behind the hero cordon with his usual unsettling smile. Well, the principal said, this is going to be complicated to explain to the Hero Commission. The fallout was indeed complicated. The Hero Commission wanted to prosecute, wanted to make an example, wanted to demonstrate that vigilante justice, even against the worst villains, wasn't acceptable. Nedzu demolished their arguments with surgical precision. Let me understand your position, he said in the emergency meeting, his paw tapping the table. A student under my care defeated All for One, a villain who'd escaped from Tartarus, who'd publicly threatened to destroy hero society, who'd killed hundreds of pro-heroes over his lifetime. And you want to punish him for this? He used lethal force against a villain who was in the process of committing mass murder, a villain who demonstrated the ability to escape any conventional prison, a villain who'd explicitly stated his intention to kill students. Nedzu's smile sharpened. What would you have preferred? That we wait for All for One to slaughter UA students and then arrest Midoriya for not stopping him? There are procedures, protocols, which All for One would have annihilated. Was the most powerful villain in recorded history. Conventional procedures would have resulted in countless deaths. Nedzu leaned forward. Midoriya saved All Might's life, eliminated an immortal threat to society, protected every citizen of Japan from a monster who would have destroyed everything we've built. And you want to prosecute him for insufficient paperwork? The arguments continued for hours. In the end, Nedzu won, partially because his logic was unassailable, partially because public opinion was overwhelmingly in Izuku's favor. The student who defeated the greatest villain in history was a hero in the public eye, regardless of methodology. But mostly because Nedzu made it clear that if the commission tried to prosecute, he'd release every piece of evidence showing how they'd failed to contain All for One in the first place, how their security at Tartarus was inadequate, how they'd known about the threat but delayed response. The commission backed down. Izuku was officially cleared of all charges, given a commendation even though he refused to attend the ceremony. I don't need a medal for doing what was necessary, he said when Nedzu offered. I eliminated a threat, that's all. Life at UA returned to a new kind of normal. Izuku was different now, not fundamentally changed. He still read his magazine, still trolled his classmates, still treated most training as beneath his interest. But there was an edge of seriousness that hadn't been there before. He'd killed someone, and while he didn't regret it, while he knew it was necessary, the weight of that decision was still there. Eri noticed. You're quieter, she said one evening as he helped her with homework, since the fight. Am I? Izuku considered. Maybe. I'm just thinking. About what? About what strength is actually for. He put down his pen. I've spent my whole life getting stronger, pushing past limits, seeking worthy opponents. But the times I've actually used my full power, really used it, have been to protect people, to eliminate threats to those who can't protect themselves. Like me, like you, like the other students, like anyone who's vulnerable to people like All for One or Overhaul. He looked at her. Maybe that's the point. Maybe strength isn't just about fighting strong opponents, it's about making sure the weak don't have to. That sounds like something a hero would say. Does it? He smiled slightly. Maybe I'm accidentally becoming one. How annoying. But he didn't sound annoyed. He sounded thoughtful. The class noticed too. He's been different since the All for One fight, Uraraka observed during lunch. More present, like he's actually thinking about things beyond his next battle. Character development, Asui said. It happens. I still think he's insane, Bakugo muttered. But at least he's consistently insane. That's almost a compliment from you, Kirishima grinned. Shut up. Izuku himself sat slightly apart, reading his magazine while Eri ate lunch beside him. To an outside observer, it looked like the same routine as always, but occasionally he'd glance up. Check the room. Make sure everyone was safe, small changes, but significant ones. Aizawa found him on the roof one evening watching the sunset. Midoriya. Sensei, how are you handling it? The aftermath. Of killing all for one, Izuku didn't look away from the horizon. I'm fine. It was necessary. I don't regret it. But I understand now why most heroes don't kill. It's not about morality or justice or any of the philosophical reasons they give. He finally turned to face his teacher. It's because taking a life, even a life that deserves to be taken, changes you, makes you someone who's crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. Regret? No, just awareness. Izuku returned to watching the sunset. I know what I am now. I'm someone who will kill to protect others, who will cross lines that heroes won't, who prioritizes effectiveness over morality. That's not heroic, that's just practical. You saved thousands of lives by killing one villain. I know, that's why I'm not losing sleep over it. His expression softened slightly, but I also know that I can't make that choice lightly. Can't just decide that anyone who's strong enough to be interesting deserves to die. There has to be a line. And where's your line? People who hurt those who can't defend themselves, people who target children, people who would keep causing suffering indefinitely if left alive. He met Aizawa's eyes. All for one crossed all those lines. So did Overhaul. If I find others like them, I'll do the same thing. That's vigilante justice. No, that's preventative elimination. There's a difference. Izuku stood. I'm not hunting villains for sport. I'm removing threats that the hero system can't handle. Threats that are too powerful, too dangerous, too persistent for conventional justice. You're 17 years old, Midoriya. I'm 17 years old and strong enough to fight threats that would destroy cities. That's not going to change just because it's inconvenient. He started walking toward the roof exit. I know what I am, Sensei. I'm not a traditional hero. I'm probably not even a good person, but I'm strong and I'm willing to use that strength to protect people who matter to me. That'll have to be enough. Aizawa watched him go, then sighed. Nedzu? The principal emerged from the shadows. Of course, he'd been listening. He's self-aware, at least, Nedzu observed. He understands his own nature and has set boundaries for it. He's also set himself up as judge, jury, and executioner. For threats beyond conventional justice, perhaps that's necessary. Nedzu's expression was thoughtful. The question isn't whether he'll kill again. We both know he will if he deems it necessary. The question is whether his judgment will remain sound. And if it doesn't, then we'll deal with it. But for now, he's proven himself capable of distinguishing between worthy opponents and genuine threats to innocence. That's more than many heroes can claim. The days blurred into weeks. Training continued. Classes proceeded. Life at UA resumed its chaotic normal. Izuku dominated every exercise, but now he also helped his classmates more actively. Not just offering cryptic advice, but actual instruction. Your ice is strong, Todoroki, but you're still treating it as a barrier. Think of it as a weapon. Ice can cut, can impale, can crush. Stop being defensive and start being aggressive. My fire control is better for offensive applications. Then use both simultaneously. Create ice barriers and superheat them into steam for cover. Freeze the ground and ignite it to create thermal shock. Stop thinking in terms of separate abilities and start thinking in terms of combined warfare. Todoroki stared at him. That's actually brilliant. It's basic tactical thinking. You're just too stuck in conventional quirk usage to see it. To Bakugo, your explosions are getting stronger, but you're still telegraphing. The moment before you attack, you tense your shoulders. Any opponent paying attention will dodge. Learn to attack from relaxation, not tension. I'm not tense! You're literally tensing right now to yell at me. Prove my point elsewhere. To the whole class during a combat exercise, you're all thinking too small. Quirks are just tools. The real weapon is your mind. Adapt, improvise, stop relying on your powers to solve every problem and start using your powers to implement solutions you've already conceived. Gradually, the class improved. Not to his level, that would be impossible, but they became sharper, more tactical, more dangerous, and Izuku seemed almost satisfied. You're enjoying teaching, Ida observed one day. I'm enjoying watching improvement. There's a difference, but Izuku's tone suggested the difference wasn't as large as he claimed. Eri's progress was slower but more significant. She smiled more often now, laughed occasionally, started making friends with the other students who treated her like a small, treasured mascot. She still had nightmares, still flinched at sudden movements, still struggled with the concept that she was actually safe, but she was healing. One evening, she asked Izuku what stopped him cold. "Are you my hero?" They were in the common room, Izuku helping her with a school assignment Nedzu had created for her. Everyone else had gone to bed. "What?" He blinked. The other students talk about heroes all the time, about saving people and fighting villains and being symbols of hope. Eri's voice was quiet. "You saved me from overhaul. You protect me from nightmares. You make sure I'm safe. So are you my hero?" Izuku was silent for a long moment. "I'm not a hero," he finally said. "Not in the way they mean. I didn't save you because I'm heroic. I saved you because you needed saving and I was capable of doing it." Does that matter? The reason? I think it does. Heroes save people because it's the right thing to do, because they want to help, because they're driven by altruism and justice. He looked at her seriously. "I saved you because seeing a child being hurt made me angry, because I wanted to punish Overhaul for his cruelty, because you were innocent and he deserved to suffer. So you're not a hero because you were angry instead of heroic?" Essentially, yes. Eri thought about this. Then, "I don't care about the reason. You saved me. You keep saving me. You're gentle and patient and kind, even when you don't have to be. If that's not a hero, then I don't want a hero. I just want you." Izuku felt something in his chest clench. "Okay," he said quietly. "Then I'll be what you need, hero or not." She smiled, a real, genuine, happy smile, and went back to her homework. Izuku stared at his magazine without seeing it, thinking about heroism and motivation, and whether the reason for good actions mattered if the results were the same. He still didn't have an answer. But for the first time, he thought maybe the question itself was more important than he'd assumed. The final evaluation came at the end of the term, a comprehensive exercise testing everything the students had learned. Combat, rescue, strategy, teamwork. Izuku dominated, obviously. But what surprised everyone was how he dominated. Instead of simply overwhelming opposition, he coordinated with his classmates, used their strengths, covered their weaknesses, actually functioned as part of a team instead of a solo operator who happened to have backup. Todoroki, ice wall on the left flank. Bakugo, aerial bombardment to drive them toward Kirishima. Kirishima, hold the center line. Everyone else, follow my lead. They moved like a precision instrument, each person's quirk complementing the others. It wasn't just Izuku's power, it was tactical superiority backed by overwhelming force. When the exercise ended, the opposing team, composed of pro heroes, was completely defeated. That was the lead hero started. "Effective," Izuku finished, "because I used everyone's capabilities instead of just my own. Strength alone is impressive. Strength with intelligence is unstoppable." Nedzu watched from the observation booth, his paw tapping thoughtfully. "He's learned," the principal said to no one in particular, "not just how to fight, but how to lead, how to incorporate others into his strategies, how to be more than just a weapon." "Is that a good thing?" Aizawa asked. "For everyone else? Absolutely. For potential villains?" Nedzu's smile was sharp. "Terrifying." The school year ended with a graduation ceremony for the third years. Izuku attended because Eri wanted to see what a ceremony was like. He sat in the back, magazine open, while speeches about heroism and duty and responsibility echoed through the auditorium. "Do you think you'll give a speech like that someday?" Eri whispered. "Absolutely not." "Why?" "Because I'd be terrible at it. I'd tell everyone that heroism is less important than competence, that motivation matters less than results, and that sometimes the most heroic thing you can do is kill the villain before they hurt anyone else." He turned a page. "That wouldn't go over well, but it's true. Truth and popular opinion rarely overlap." After the ceremony, All Might approached. He looked better now. His injuries from years past were healing. His retirement had given him time to rest. "Midoriya, All Might, I wanted to thank you for what you did, for defeating All for One. You already thanked me 3 times. I know, but I don't think you understand what it meant. He was my greatest failure, my responsibility, the one threat I couldn't eliminate." All Might's voice was heavy with old pain. "You did what I couldn't, You finished it. You would have eventually. You just hesitated because you're actually heroic. Izuku closed his magazine. I didn't have that limitation. Is that really how you see it? As a limitation? Isn't it? Your hesitation to kill, even when killing is necessary, has let threats persist longer than they should. All for one. Numerous other villains who escaped and killed again. He met All Might's eyes. I respect your principles, but I also recognize that sometimes principles cost lives. And you're willing to pay that cost? I'm willing to prevent others from having to pay it. Izuku stood. If that means I'm the one who crosses lines, who kills when necessary, who becomes the monster that fights monsters, so be it. Better me than someone who will be destroyed by it. All Might was quiet for a long moment. Then, you're not a monster, Midoriya. You're just someone who's honest about what violence sometimes requires. Is there a difference? I think so. Monsters enjoy the violence. You just accept it as necessary. Izuku considered this. Maybe. Or maybe I just haven't found a fight that truly tests me yet. Haven't faced an opponent who pushes me past acceptance into enjoyment. You sound almost hopeful about that. Of course. I've spent my entire life seeking strong opponents. All for One was powerful, but I killed him efficiently, clinically. There wasn't joy in it, just necessity. His eyes gleamed. Somewhere out there, there's someone who will actually challenge me, who will push me to my absolute limit, who will make me fight with everything I have, not to protect others, but just for the pure exhilaration of combat. And when you find them, then we'll see who I really am, protector or warrior, hero or monster, human or something beyond. Izuku smiled slightly. I'm looking forward to finding out. He walked away, leaving All Might staring after him with an expression caught between concern and understanding. That night, Izuku sat with Eri on the dorm roof, watching stars. What are you thinking about? She asked. Everything and nothing. The future. What comes next? Will you stay at UA? For now, I still have things to learn, techniques to master, opponents to face. He glanced at her. And someone to protect. You don't have to protect me forever. I'm getting stronger. I know, but until you can protect yourself, I'll do it for you. And even after that, probably. He looked back at the stars. Because that's what you do for people who matter. Do I matter? More than you know. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Eri spoke again. The other students say you're the strongest person at UA. Maybe in all of Japan. Probably. Does that make you lonely? Being so much stronger than everyone else? Izuku thought about that question. Really thought about it. Sometimes, he admitted, it's hard to connect with people when your entire existence is on a different scale than theirs. When your concerns, your challenges, your entire worldview is fundamentally different. But loneliness is a small price to pay for the ability to protect what matters. And lately, I've found that strength doesn't have to be isolating. It can be shared, used to elevate others. He looked at her. You've taught me that, actually. That being strong doesn't mean being alone. It means being able to shelter others from what you can withstand. That's profound. Don't tell anyone. I have a reputation as a troll to maintain. She laughed, and the sound echoed across the quiet campus. The final scene. Weeks later, Izuku stood in a training ground, alone, except for the presence of his teachers watching from the observation room. Show us, Netsu said through the intercom, what you're truly capable of. No holding back, no limitations. Give us a full demonstration of your power. Izuku's hands came together in prayer position. Are you sure? The training ground won't survive. We've reinforced it with every defensive measure available. Show us anyway. As you wish. He took a breath, centered himself, and for the first time since arriving at UA, released his full power without any restraint. The golden aura exploded outward, a tsunami of energy that made the air itself scream. The Bodhisattva avatar materialized, not 30 hands, not 99, but its full form. A being of pure light and power that towered over the training ground, so bright it hurt to look at directly. 108 hands, each hand came together in prayer position, then opened, palms forward. 108th hand, enlightenment palm. The attack wasn't destructive, it was transcendent. Pure life energy condensed and then released in a wave that washed over everything. The reinforced walls didn't break, they simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, but elevated beyond physical form. When the light faded, the training ground was gone. In its place was a perfect circle of ground so smooth it looked polished. Everything within 100 meters had been elevated beyond physical existence, leaving only essence. In the observation room, every sensor had burned out. Every camera had failed. Every measurement device had overloaded. Aizawa stared through the window at the transformed landscape. He couldn't find words. Beyond what we can measure, Nedzu finished. Beyond what we can even conceptualize. He's not just strong, he's operating on a fundamentally different level than everyone else. Is he even human anymore? That's a philosophical question I'm not qualified to answer. Nedzu's expression was thoughtful, but I think yes. Because a non-human wouldn't care about a traumatized little girl's happiness, wouldn't waste time reading magazines in class, wouldn't bother helping classmates improve. Then what is he? Human. Just more. In the transformed training ground, Izuku lowered his hands, breathing normally despite the massive expenditure of power. Satisfactory? He asked. Terrifying, Nedzu replied. But yes, satisfactory. As Izuku walked back toward the building, he thought about everything that had happened since arriving at UA. The fights, the challenges, the growth, not just in power, but in understanding. He'd come here seeking worthy opponents. Instead, he'd found something else. Purpose beyond combat, connections beyond strength. Reasons to use his power that had nothing to do with personal satisfaction. He still wanted to fight strong opponents. Still craved the thrill of true combat. Still sought someone who could actually challenge him. But now, that desire was balanced by other priorities. Protecting Eri, training his classmates, eliminating threats to the innocent, being more than just a weapon. Maybe that was growth. Maybe that was what the Bodhisattva path actually meant. Not just power, but the wisdom to know when and how to use it. Or maybe he was overthinking it. He pulled out his magazine, found an interesting article about tea cultivation in China, and started reading as he walked. Behind him, the transformed training ground slowly began to reconstitute itself, reality asserting itself against the temporary enlightenment his technique had created. Some things, after all, were too vast to maintain permanently. But for a moment, he'd shown them what true power looked like, what the peak of human capability could achieve when pushed beyond all conventional limits. And somewhere out there, he knew there were opponents who'd see what he could do and decide to challenge him anyway. He was looking forward to it. Epilogue. 6 months later, Eri stood in a training room, her horn glowing softly as she practiced the control exercises Izuku had designed for her. Her quirk, Rewind, was dangerous without control, but with proper training, proper understanding, it could be extraordinary. Good, Izuku observed, watching her rewind a cracked training dummy to perfect condition. Your precision is improving. I'm still scared sometimes that I'll lose control, that I'll hurt someone. Fear is natural, but you're not the same girl. Overhaul imprisoned. You're stronger now, braver, more capable. He placed a hand on her shoulder. And even if you do lose control, I'm here. I can withstand anything your quirk can do. So practice without fear. I'm your safety net. She smiled and returned to her exercises. In the observation room, the teachers watched. He's good with her, Midnight observed. Better than anyone expected. He cares, Aizawa said simply. In his own way, for his own reasons, but he cares. That's what matters. On the other side of campus, Bakugo trained alone, pushing his explosions harder, faster, stronger, trying to close a gap he knew was impossible, but refused to accept. Todoroki practiced combination techniques, ice and fire working in harmony for the first time in his life. The rest of Class 1A improved in their own ways, each one pushing toward their potential. And above it all, Nedzu watched his students grow, knowing that something unprecedented was happening at UA. They had produced the strongest student in history. Someone who could fight the greatest villains alone and win. Someone who could protect or destroy with equal capability. But more importantly, they'd produced someone who understood the weight of that power, who'd chosen to use it responsibly, even when responsibility required crossing lines others wouldn't. What do you think happens next? Recovery Girl asked, appearing beside him. Next? Nedzu's smile was enigmatic. Next, the world adjusts to the fact that there's someone like Midoriya in it. Someone who can enforce his will if he chooses, but chooses to use that power judiciously. Someone who's changed the fundamental equation of hero society just by existing. And if he decides one day that his judgment is better than society's, then we hope his judgment is actually correct, because no one can stop him if it's not. Nedzu's expression grew serious, but I don't think that's who he is. He's not seeking domination, just worthy challenges and the occasional peaceful moment with a magazine. That's almost comforting. Almost. They watched as Izuku finished helping Eri, then pulled out his magazine and started reading. Sitting cross-legged on the training room floor while she practiced nearby, the strongest person in Japan, possibly the world, reading about seasonal vegetables while a traumatized little girl learned to control her power under his protection. It was absurd, unprecedented, completely outside any paradigm Hero Society had prepared for, and somehow it was working. "The world has no idea what we've created here," Recovery Girl murmured. "No," Nedzu agreed, his smile returning. "But they're about to find out." And in the quiet of that training room, Izuku turned a page, sensed Eri successfully completing her exercise, and smiled slightly. He'd come to UA seeking strength. He'd found it in himself, in his opponents, in the challenges he'd faced, but more than that, he'd found purpose. Not the purpose society expected, not traditional heroism, but something more honest, more real. Protect the innocent, fight worthy opponents, eliminate genuine threats, help those who mattered, find peace in simple moments. It wasn't a hero's path. It was just his path, and he was content with that. The magazine had an interesting article about mountain meditation practices. He started reading, already planning to try them during the next break. Behind him, Eri laughed as she successfully rewound a shattered target to perfection. Somewhere out there, villains plotted, heroes trained, society evolved. And Izuku Midoriya read his magazine, the strongest warrior of his generation, waiting patiently for the next challenge worth his time. The world, whether it knew it or not, was in good hands. Strange hands. Unconventional hands. Hands that could destroy cities or save children with equal capability. But good hands, nonetheless. The end.
Huge shout out to the absolute legends fueling the fire. You guys aren't just members, you're the heartbeat of this community. Thank you for believing in the vision and keeping the momentum at an all-time high. Pro heroes, the front line, the ones who step up and set the pace. These legends are the backbone of the operation. Dylan the Proud, DA, Fire 05. Symbols of peace, the pillars of the community. These titans bring the stability and the hype that keeps us standing tall through it all. Kenneth Ponteris, Neo Star Productions, Asael Cardenas, Shaquan Simmons, Agroxa 298, Elijah Saunders, Peter Hamilton, Freddy_Rose, Omega, Toxic Rune, Chris Talley, Alexander Thompson, Remorsefuls, Black Vein, Joshua Hedrington, Aaron Abercrombie, Drift Escator, Akino Himajima, Corey Tokars, Jan, X0 Hope 3656, Devin Black, Crow, Roberto Ramos Di Cristina, Dasher Games, Ray Von Crimson River, Dante Allister, Adam Yonkers, Blood Saints, Donna Cafe, Zeph, KC, Howie 60, Ignacio, Albert, Hope of the Universe. The ultimate defenders. These are the celestial tier legends whose support reaches beyond the stars. They are the final spark that lights up the dark. Sean Brooks, Keyshawn, Debbie Vo, LS Morningstar, Marl, Spintown, Greg Green, James, Guanyin Thompson, Juan, Zeno KJ.
That is the terrifying reality of a hero forged in silence and gratitude. If you loved seeing the Zero Hand obliterate the meta, smash that like button, subscribe and ring the bell to join our next legendary What If analysis. Who should Deku become next? Comment below.